That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Dennis Rader and David Parker actually sit together in hell, shaking, quaking, terrified that one day, somehow, some way, they might meet me. They took our girls away from home. They're in the woods, they're all alone. The ropes are heavy and the knots are tight, tied by a monster and his oblivious wife. Well, I hope this doesn't seem too impolite, but Ted Bundy was just never that fucking bright. He was just starting.
Welcome, KLRN Radio, friends and family. This is the Talk Murder to Me podcast, episode number 4. The show title tonight is The Anatomy of Evil, and it is based on the book by the same name, written by Dr. Michael H. Stone. And we both highly recommend this book if you have any interest in this kind of...
It's more clinical and analytical than most of the true crime books that are out there. So if you want something a little drier, it's entertaining to me, but it is a little more clinical than most.
Yeah. Well, it is entertaining to her, that's for sure. It's hard to read for me sometimes, not just because of the big words, but it gets into the cases. But again, it's by Dr. Michael Stone. He's one of the foremost investigators of this kind of stuff. And
forensic psychology, criminology.
Exactly. He's the top dog when it comes to that kind of stuff. Well, I am your co-host, Bump Stop Ken, as always. And as you've already heard her talking, she is the irresistible creature who has an insatiable love for all things macabre. And she is your co-host and my wife, Bump Stock Barbie.
Oh, I love the Rob Zombie reference there.
Yeah.
A little bit different, but you got it. So, hey guys, yes, we are going to be discussing it. This is going to be a more informal thing than we have normally done. It's not going to be as formatted. You're just going to hear us all having just a conversation, a discussion about everything. Mm-hmm. But it's going into like what constitutes someone or something as evil. Like we'll go into Dr. Stone's kind of touch on his definition, his working definition of evil, so that we have kind of a baseline. But yeah, and he's got a 22-point ranking system for levels of severity, basically for an individual case. And we'll kind of go through some cases that we actually personally think fit that criteria.
Yeah, and tonight is, like I said, it's starting a new version, I guess, of the show. We used to be on every other Wednesday for an hour, and with me and my job taking me out of town at all different hours and all different days, we decided it would be better and less stressful, especially with, we know school will be starting back soon and all the things that go along with that with our daughter, that it might be best to move it to Saturday nights where we are now. And that actually opened up with KLRN was able to give us an extra hour if we want it. So we could be here for not just an hour, but maybe two. It's just how we feel it naturally progresses, and no pressure. It's just going to be more of a relaxed, not rushed. We can spend a little more time on our subjects and what we're discussing.
Yeah, especially when it comes to individual cases, that'll actually give us a lot more time.
Oh, I would definitely want to go back and touch on some that
we can do a part 2. Yeah, we can do a part 2 on some of our other ones.
Because there was so much I wanted to do. Like we got one when we eventually do H.H. Holmes. I want to go. I mean, I could do 2 hours on him by myself.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot interesting with that one too, though.
Did you want to mention the live chat if someone?
Yeah, and hopefully we've got kind of a live chat kind of deal up and running. I think y'all can hear me on Facebook and on X, but I don't know how those comments and everything will work if I need to get my apps back and running. I've never done this before.
We're still learning this ourselves.
I can explain that part. So
this is Rick, our awesome producer. He's the only one that keeps this going.
So as far as comments and stuff, those will all feed into the central chat, which I'm not sure if you guys will be able to see, but I can always relay anything that comes through.
I just saw Gigi in Texas said hello. So
yeah. I mean, the ones that are coming through your feed, you should still be able to see, but it should also sync up almost all of them once everything catches up. Now, as far as if there gets to be any lively discussions on X or anything like that, you'll actually want to pull up your account, go to the feed, and then click on it. There'll be a chat right there, but that only works if you're on a laptop. If it's mobile, it won't work.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Hey, Andrew. Give your granddaughter some love. John selected me, so no fun.
We're getting some people in there, so that'll be good. They can comment as we go.
Yeah.
And if they got any questions, we'll try to keep up with that. And
we definitely want to be more interactive tonight since we have the time and
let them in. Let them into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's get started properly. You kind of lay us out where we're going to start and give us a baseline on what they say, what Dr. Stone says is evil, because
I think that's probably going to be our best starting point is just going through like where his introduction, he does a lot in the introduction as far as defining evil and everything. So we'll get kind of a baseline there to work with.
Yeah. And again, this book is The Anatomy of Evil by Michael H. Stone, MD. And you can find it at Amazon.
I found it on Amazon for pretty cheap. So
there's an audiobook version. If you have Audible, that's on there. So you can find it pretty much anywhere. And again, it's very clinical, but it's extremely educational, and it's a good read. So.
Yeah, I think the first night that I got it, I ended up annoying you because I sat up all night just burning through it. So, but Dr. Stone, the way he introduces this is he talks about like where we get the concept of evil from. And yes, it has. And Brass mentioned this actually to me earlier, which I told him I promised I would touch on it because it is relevant. The idea, the whole concept of evil is entirely rooted. It's an abstract concept, but it is rooted in religion. But it's not just like any kind of Abrahamic religion, like, Buddhists have their own definition and things like that. But evil is specifically, shut up, lady. is specifically mentioned 604 times in the Bible between the Old and the New Testaments. But in the Bible, evil is equated with just being wrong or bad, and is not limited as a label to be reserved for the worst of the bad or wrong actions. I mean, you've seen a lot of stuff. I mean, in Leviticus, you get into the laws that God gave to Israel and everything to set them apart from other nations. Like even wearing clothes with many different fibers was considered wrong or bad. So that would qualify as something evil from Leviticus. But it's a global use of the word evil. It's found in the Quran. There's a 3rd century Prussian prophet. I don't know how to pronounce the name. Is Mani. So Manny. He divided the human experience into good and bad. Zoroaster described good and bad as two twin gods representing these influences: a god of light and the good, and a god of darkness and the bad or evil. Buddhism actually emphasizes, besides lust as a primary sin, a tripartite concept that gives special weight to anger, greed, and foolishness. So,
well, it's like I said, evil is, in my opinion, the word evil should hold weight, a lot more weight than it gets thrown around sometimes.
Yeah, it's been very overused, oversaturated in everything now.
You know, it's like, I mean, it's just like with racism and all that kind of stuff. The word loses its potency when you get thrown around and
yeah, just to label everything as evil, then nothing is evil. Just, the same way if you use racist or something like that, if everything is racist, then nothing is racist.
Right.
So it's that same concept. But Dr. Stone, his working definition of evil right here, he says, evil is a word we apply to situations or specific acts that have the quality of horrifying or shocking whoever witnesses or hears about these acts. In today's parlance, the term is less commonly applied to the persons who are guilty of these acts. Evil, in other words, is reserved for acts that are breathtakingly awful. Breathtaking because the degree of violence, suffering, or humiliation imposed on someone else so greatly exceeds what would be needed to express the perpetrator's irritation or animosity or to subdue the victim. He says this element of excess is crucial to the customary use of the word evil. The root meaning actually comes from Anglo-Saxon origins. It was spelled Y-F-E-L, but still pronounced the same way. And it meant over or beyond. So to be categorized as evil, there must be a flagrant deviation from the standards of acceptable behavior within the community of the particular culture and time period. The deviation, that is, must be over and beyond what ordinary people in the community could even envision as something another human being could ever do. So I think that's a pretty functional definition that we can use there. But he goes further on since we more apply it to acts rather than people, he says that, when we call a certain person evil, in contrast to calling the acts evil, we imply that the person themselves can be counted on to commit such acts habitually and often. Mm-hmm. Even so, he says it's only rarely true that every moment of that person's waking day is spent doing evil acts. Some persons that, we're going to talk about tonight, obviously, he says, may turn out to have been unassuming and helpful neighbors or pleasant, innocuous-seeming co-workers who have led, as we always end up learning, unsuspected and undetected for years, that secret life where they're doing these evil things. So we can actually go to cut 1 because Ted Bundy is the first one that came immediately to my mind when talking about this.
And I think we might have lost them.
Oh, no.
We're back now for some reason. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. You kind of cut out.
I think it might have blinked out there. So,
where did you lose us?
Actually, you've only been gone for like 2 seconds.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, we just asked you to go ahead and go to cut 1 for the Ted Bundy clip.
Yeah, so that would probably explain why I didn't.
Yeah, and that's from, actually, it's an interview with Ann Rule, the true crime writer, who was actually good friends with him.
So we're actually cheating for the folks that are keeping up on the screens. You're actually going to be able to see the little bit that's here, not just hear it. So hang on.
In 1971, at the age of 25, Bundy was working in his spare time at the Seattle Crisis Center, manning the suicide hotline phones. Beside him worked soon-to-be author Ann Rule.
He was kind. He was very good on the phone. And ironically, we saved lives together.
Yeah, I mean, you get the people like Ted Bundy who were very unassuming. I mean, he was attractive. He actually did some work with Republicans, I know, in Seattle and up there in the Northwest. But
just opposite of Gacy then.
Yeah, pretty much. But Bundy, I mean, he worked at a crisis center and helped man the suicide hotline.
Yeah.
Which arguably, I mean, he might have saved a lot of lives too, which is very weird to think about.
He very well could have.
And like you mentioned, Gacy, he was a contractor. He was a precinct captain for the Democrats. He was well liked in his community. He was part of the JC Civic Group. He had ambitions of running for alderman, mayor, and eventually the Senate, actually. And obviously he worked as Pogo the Clown, or his other clown persona was Patches, at children's parties, hospitals, and charity fundraisers and stuff like that. And then you've got people like Dennis Rader, the BTK killer. He stopped killing for what, like 17 years when his kids were born?
To be a family man. He was a deacon in his church.
He was a deacon of his church. So that's why I think it's harder to establish who is an evil person versus the evil acts that they commit. Right. I mean, it seems logical to me to say that an evil person is going to commit evil acts, though.
Yeah, I think everybody has evil in them and has the potential.
The potential, yeah, that's what I would say.
Acts. You know, to go back to the Christian beliefs, they are, which I do hold, everyone's born into sin, and everyone has the potential born into them to do evil things. Every one of us.
I mean, when we were going through all that mess with the tiny tyrant and all that, like, I think I had it in me to perform some evil stuff there for a little while. You can chime in, baby.
Yeah, me too.
You too. That was a tiny tyrant.
So. Yes. So she might pop in on occasion. But
she's in here proud of the honey bun she just found because it's perfect, apparently.
Yeah, it's got the perfect amount of icing on it.
But yeah, like I said, you just mentioned Gacy.
Yeah.
And that's something else I just thought about, his ambitions to run for public office. And
well, you actually see a lot of that, like psychopathy and sociopathy are outdated terms. They fall under the banner of antisocial personality disorder.
And then you the narcissisms in them, you know.
But the thing is, it said, like, at least in the U.S., like 1% to 2% of our population is technically clinically a psychopath. And they overwhelmingly tend to be CEOs or politicians.
Well, don't you think that would be because of their drive? They want to be recognized. They want that stardom.
There's a lot of that too there. And the narcissism, like you mentioned, the grandiosity. I'm going to actually go into that in just a second because Dr. Stone said that the personality traits include glib speech or, superficial charm, somebody who can, fake being a nice guy and be charming. Grandiosity. They pump themselves up. They make themselves, bigger than what they actually are. I see you kind of smirking. I don't know if you had a joke.
No, I just looking at my best dad ever shirt cup. I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, mine's the best dad ever. So,
but they're conning, they're manipulative, pathological liars. Which obviously, all of this, I'm describing all of our current politicians right now.
You're also describing someone we know personally that lives in Louisiana now.
Yeah. There's a lack of remorse and guilt, callousness, lack of empathy towards others, a failure to accept responsibility for their actions. Some of the behavioral traits include impulsivity, sexual promiscuity, poor behavioral controls, and a parasitic lifestyle, but they don't necessarily have to include those things. But those are the actual traits that, we look for in antisocial personalities. Like that. But him and the Tiny Tyrant are kind of whispering right now. But we'll go ahead and discuss like what Dr. Stone says for an act to be evil. It has to have 4 specific things.
Yeah, for it to be considered his clinical view
his
of
definition.
Evil. And I actually agree with it. It says here in his book, for an act to be evil, 1, it must be breathtakingly horrible, which we kind of touched on a second ago. 2, the malice aforethought, the evil intention, will usually precede the act.
That's premeditation, essentially.
Not necessarily a crime of passion, but they thought it out. Yeah,
it's not impulsive.
Yeah.
It's planned ahead.
Yeah, and then number 3, the degree of suffering inflicted will be wildly excessive. And number 4, the nature of the act will appear incomprehensible, bewildering, and beyond the imagination of ordinary people in the community. So they're talking about shock and awe versions of...
Yeah, basically like the worst crimes you can think of, essentially.
So
for that act to be considered evil in his mind.
Yeah, and that's the thing what I was meaning earlier about evil being overused. Murder...
in general is an awful thing.
Yeah, but when you think about the different levels, if you kill someone in self-defense, to me, that's not an evil act at all.
That's not murder either.
If it is, I know that's self-defense, but like if it's a murder where it is accidental or something like that, again, there's no intent, so that can't be evil. Even though, like for instance, say drunk driver, okay, horrible decision, terrible situation, has an accident, kills someone. Some people go like, "Oh, that's just evil. I can't believe the evil." I don't agree with that. That is a horrific accident. It's a terrible situation, but it's not necessarily evil.
Well, and I do need to point out, legally speaking, it would not qualify as murder either.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of this is that we're going to discuss tonight is going to go into murder.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the general cause of the
like
death
just
of someone
homicide,
else.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, homicide is just one human
Let's say
is causing the death of another human.
You don't get murder unless there's intent involved.
Yeah.
But still, I've heard people mention, "Oh, that's just an act of evil," on something that is not an act of evil.
Yeah, I mean, look, they call Kyle Rittenhouse evil.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and that was self-defense entirely. So, but that is actually category 1 in Dr. Stone's scale that he's got here, and it's like a 22-point scale, as we mentioned earlier. And category 1 is like the lowest, that kind of ranks as like a 0, basically.
Yeah.
And that is justifiable homicide. Those are your self-defenses like that.
Yeah, self-defense, justifiable homicides, no evil intentions, nothing.
No, I mean you're just doing what you have to do to protect yourself, basically, at that point. So there's nothing evil about that.
I think a lot of it, like you mentioned, Rittenhouse, the word evil gets used a lot, especially politically, when it's the opposing party.
Yeah,
like
and both sides are bad about that.
I've heard people say Biden is evil. No, Biden's not evil.
Yeah,
he does some dumb stuff, and he's being puppeted around by some people, but he's not evil. He may be losing his mind, which is obvious, and the people that are dragging him around and parading him in front of everybody and propping him up, that's some pretty despicable behavior.
I wouldn't necessarily call it evil, but it's infuriating. I mean, you know how I feel since losing Daddy.
Sad.
So
I mean, it's sad at this point.
That's elder abuse straight up. But I wouldn't necessarily qualify that as evil.
Now, elder abuse in some situations, I would say
it can be. Yes, then gets into the different criteria.
Exactly.
So, but then in category 2 through 6 for his scale, you get impulsive murders in people without any of the psychopathic traits that I talked about a minute ago. So category 2, that's jealous lovers, egocentric, immature people, and they commit crimes of passion.
So would that be like the husband or wife walking in and...
Yeah, and you just kind of snap like...
Yeah, kill the
that would be a crime
of
passion.
Or something.
It's not evil. That person has likely never done anything like that before in their life.
Yeah.
And probably would never do it again.
So would that be... that wouldn't be justified homicide. That'd be murder 2 or something, you think?
It would depend on the circumstances of that crime. Like, did the person maybe like walk out of the room or something to like go get a gun? Because now it's not a crime of passion. Now they're actually planning to come back and kill them.
just on the chat there,
Oh.
Rex. Yeah, we can see your chat on this, wherever you're texting from. I guess is X. Yeah, we can see it. It pops up right here. So this is what
Yeah.
you're using is a good chat location.
Yeah, and again, we will be following the chat as much as possible and everything. So if y'all have questions, like feel free to jump in. So
Right. But yeah, the crime of passion type thing.
crime of passions usually kind of more get into the lower end of the homicide spectrum, legally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's category 3, which is willing companions of killers. They're impulse ridden, and they might have some of the antisocial traits that I talked about. But we're talking like the Myra Henley of the Morris murders. She was, we're talking the accomplices that kind of help out and everything, but they're also kind of abused in some way too, typically. Not necessarily, but again, all this depends on the actual circumstances of each killing.
Now, what was that case you just mentioned?
The Morris murders, which I don't think you're really familiar with.
I'm just saying there may be a lot of other people that's not.
Yeah, it's the Morris murders, Myra Henley or Maura Henry, but I cannot remember for the life of me now the guy's name who was in charge. But they were abducted. She was the bait, basically, to abduct children.
Okay.
So we can actually come back to that because I know me and you have thoughts on crimes against children too.
Oh, yeah.
So. Category 4 is killing in self-defense, but extremely provocative towards the victim. That's like a dude at a bar, and we've seen it happen time and time again when we were working in the bars. The guy that's just the belligerent drunk, and he's egging people on, and they go outside and get into a fight. He has provoked that fight, so fighting back may technically be self-defense, but he is the one who caused this himself. Like he made that, he fabricated that entire situation. He made it happen.
Well, would this be like category 4?
Is killing in self-defense, but provocative towards the victim.
So would that be like the one beat somebody to death, and they could have stopped the fight, but they continue going? Is that what that provocative towards the victim? Is that what that would be?
I would think that if you were provocative, like say it was you in the bar,
yeah,
and like there's another guy at the bar, and you're just antagonizing him, you're messing with him all night and everything, and he finally takes you outside to like whoop your butt.
Yeah.
And then you fight back. You have provoked this entire fight.
Okay.
Technically, yes, you are acting in self-defense at this point, but you are not blameless. Yeah. You are the one that started the entire thing. There would not have been that fight otherwise.
It's not an excessive fight, not excessive force against the victim. It's actually just the opposite. You antagonized it to get in the fight, and then you are the one who beat the guy up.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
The next one, category 5, that one's always interesting. I like seeing cases like this as a defense. Traumatized, desperate persons who kill relative or others yet have remorse. These are the battered woman syndrome.
Yeah.
You get those women that, allegedly have been abused for decades and decades or, however long, and they finally just lose it. And they think that is the only way that they're going to get out of that situation. And to me, that's kind of understandable. But for me personally, I'm going to have some more proof that this abuse was actually going on.
Now, would this, watch that girl, the Munchausen by proxy that wound up.
Oh, you're talking about Gypsy Rose?
Yeah, would she fall into that category?
Dee Dee Blanchard?
No,
the little girl. Yes, I think Gypsy Rose absolutely falls into category 5. Because we absolutely know that she was traumatized from birth.
She was badly
like we'll have
abused.
to do an episode on her one night.
Yeah,
because
she
that
deserves a whole by herself.
Yeah, that one is, all the stuff that she was doing to that poor girl was absolutely horrific. And yeah, Gypsy Rose eventually got to the point where she thought, this woman is going to have to die for me to get out from under her.
I don't think she was wrong in that.
I honestly don't either. And like I said, when we get to that episode, we can do a whole deep dive on that.
But that would be a
that
level
would be
5.
Yeah, that would be an
Gypsy
example
Rose
of a category 5 for sure.
Now, the boyfriend that done the killing would not be 5, but
no, he'll fall in somewhere else.
Later.
But he also had his own mental issues. So I think he was very easily manipulated.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So I don't think that he was necessarily like the bad guy here.
Yeah, we'll get into that more on a different show. But I think that she Charlie Mansoned that boy and got him to do her dirty work that she wasn't able to do herself.
And now we've got category 6, and this is just the second grouping in this. Those are the impetuous, hot-headed murders, but without marked psychopathic traits that I mentioned earlier. These are the people that don't have like the antisocial personality traits.
Mhm.
They're just, they just got mad.
This is the one this is the guy at the bar I mentioned earlier that beat the dude and just wouldn't stop beating him.
Yeah, I
That
mean,
one.
well, and he got mad over something maybe completely innocent.
Yeah,
you know,
knocked the beer out of his hand or something like
yeah,
that.
something like that.
We
I mean,
keep going back to the bar type scenarios.
I said, but that's what we know.
We both worked in them. You for 9 years?
Almost. I was a bartender for nearly 10 years, and that's how we met. Because
and then I was in and out of it for almost over 12 or 13 years, in and out of it. So,
yeah, the degrees of murder, Stephen, those actually, like, when we go more in depth in some of these, because as we get down the list, there's a worst category that we both agree on is who we're going to put in that category. Yeah. But it's the circumstances and the details and everything around the deaths and everything will determine what kind of charge they get, whether it's some kind of negligent homicide or involuntary manslaughter or second-degree murder, all those various things.
It does look like a lot of the category 2 through 6 would cover some of the second-degree murder.
Yeah, I'm sure with a lot of the circumstances of a specific crime, even in just that little category we went through, there's some second-degree murder in there.
Yeah, there's no murder one in there.
Yeah, we're not really going to go into the legalistic side of this,
mainly because I'm not smart enough to keep up with it. Stephen would need to join us on this one.
Oh my God!
6th-degree murder would involve Kevin Bacon. Thank you so much.
That's
for that.
Excellent, Brass.
I'm gonna
very good.
I need like a little bell or something I can ding to tell him. That's awesome.
We'll have to get one of those little bells.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're into the third.
Can approve. Ding, ding.
Now the third category is only category 7 and 8. These are people with few or no psychopathic traits, but they are murders of a more severe type. Category 7 is a highly narcissistic person, someone with a psychotic core who murders their loved ones. And this is probably the most common we're going to see because most all murders are committed by somebody that the victim knows. And I would probably venture a guess and say most of those are family members in general. Like it's going to be less than just like the friends of the family or something like that. So.
And what now? Okay, it says few or no.
Yeah, they may have like maybe one or two of the traits I mentioned
because
earlier.
Wouldn't highly narcissistic, wouldn't that kind of fall into that?
Yes, it is. Narcissism is one of the category or the traits.
I just misheard. I didn't hear you say few. I just got the no part. I thought, oh, wait a minute. But it's few.
Yeah.
Okay.
These are people very self-involved. Everything they do is to benefit themselves in some way.
In some way, yeah. We know folks like that.
Yeah, I mean, and not every narcissistic person is ever going to be violent. I mean, they're highly manipulative usually.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Like, they'll take advantage of people with no qualms about it whatsoever.
It's just like we mentioned at the start of the show. They may do some things that are really bad, but they're not necessarily evil.
Yeah, I mean, they'll do wrong stuff, but not an evil act usually.
Mm-hmm.
Category 8 are murders sparked by smoldering rage, and that they actually result sometimes in mass murder. So this is where you get your familicides. I wouldn't say gang shootings because they're more impulsive usually. But your mass shooters, like the school shooters and everything, this is your smoldering rage. This is they've been bullied and all the stuff has built up and built up and built up for so long.
That's like, I mean, we see that in their manifestos they come out. I mean, nearly every single time we get a manifesto, that's what.
Yeah, and that's another episode we're going to do a deep dive in because I actually wrote a pretty comprehensive piece for Wrong Speak Publishing about like what's behind what drives mass murder in general, but mass shootings in particular.
Right.
So that would fall under a category 8. Now we're getting into
let's spend a little more time on category 8. Now that's like it wouldn't necessarily be a school shooting. I mean,
just any kind of mass murder usually.
So the guy in Texas, the one from the window, what's his name? That caused the bump stop ban.
Oh, that was Vegas.
Vegas.
Oh God, what was his name now? I forget it now.
Anyway, everybody knows who we're talking about. I'm drawing a blank as well, but
Stephen, that's actually a good question. Marvin Niemeyer, the tank guy. But he didn't kill anybody. He was the only one who ever died in that. He just destroyed property.
He definitely destroyed property, yeah.
I don't think that he would actually fit into category 8 because I don't think destroying property is necessarily evil. He didn't hurt anybody
No.
but himself.
I mean, he purposely targeted businesses and stuff after hours where they
Yeah, I
knew-
mean, he had the smoldering rage against these businesses
Oh,
and the
for
people
sure.
that owned them. Absolutely.
Now,
But the only person that died
I
in his
think-
spree was himself.
yeah, I think he did have a 50 caliber rifle mounted in the back of it. So he had, and of
He had
course, the bulldozer.
capability.
The capability was there for sure, but I don't think he had the intent to actually hurt or even, especially not kill anyone.
No,
Because he had the tools to do it.
he was trying to make a point, and I mean that goes back to his manifesto when he said sometimes reasonable men must do unreasonable things. That was an unreasonable thing, but again, he made sure he didn't hurt anybody.
I might say that's another thing, like you was talking about the psychopathy. He didn't have those tendencies.
Yeah,
They was
he was just a normal guy.
they pushed
but
him past his breaking point,
yeah,
and he done unreasonable things. Again,
and that was definitely smoldering rage because that killdozer took forever to build.
Oh yeah,
like that thing was okay. I'm going to be blunt. That thing was a thing of beauty.
oh yeah. I was actually going to say the same thing. It's a work of art. I love it, and I totally understand where he's coming from too. But yeah, he was definitely smoldering rage and stuff. But there's no evil intent or anything.
But say it was no. These were, it's qualified. They include murders of a more severe type, and again, he never killed anybody but himself.
It's a good thing he didn't have those tendencies because he could.
Oh my God, he could have laid waste to that little
entire
town. God,
no, they was him falling into that basement was the only thing that. And his bulldozer's overheating, so eventually the killdozer would have stopped on its own.
Yeah,
but him getting stuck in that basement and the floor falling through is what slowed him down. And they was able to get to him. But yeah, he could have absolutely. I mean, he could have timed it differently. Different part of the day or a different day altogether when it was busy, man, his numbers could have been outrageous, huge numbers.
It would have been bad.
Yeah,
so
they're all lucky that he didn't have those tendencies to do it.
So now we're getting into what's that? The fourth group now. The psychopathic features are marked, and the murders actually show malice aforethought. So we're getting now into the premeditation.
Yeah, we're getting into murders now.
Now they're not all of the psychopathic traits, but they have many of them.
Oh yeah.
So enough of them that okay, you could be diagnosed with this, but you're kind of borderline.
Now we'll touch on some of the people that would fit in these categories that y'all might recognize their names of too.
Yeah, and this one, okay, this is where we talked about in category 2 with jealous lovers, when you just walk in and you snap and you act and you kill your wife or your husband in bed with somebody else. That's
Right.
category 2. Category 9 is a jealous lover with strong psychopathic traits or either full-blown psychopathy. This is the one that knows that they're cheating or even just suspects it. They're jealous even for no reason. Sometimes I've seen a lot of cases on women who kill.
Yeah.
Of cases like that. But those are the ones that actually then start planning, I'm going to kill my lover.
Okay, since you mentioned that, would it be you think more women would fall into that category or more men would? Because later on, there's obviously more men fall into this other category.
That's actually a really good question. But now that kind of goes to the typical psychological traits of men versus women. Men will turn their anger outwards at the source of their anger. Women turn it inwards. A woman who is spurned like that would probably be way more likely to commit suicide than to kill the lover.
Well, I know, speaking for normal-headed men, that we do turn a lot of our anger inwards on ourselves as well.
Yeah,
but we also don't have the psychopathy and the issues that would.
But that's why men have such a high suicide rate on average too. So, it really depends. But in general, for situations like that, women are probably more likely to kill themselves.
Yeah.
But they'll also kind of do it as a punishment for that jealous lover.
They'll also be more likely to be the ones who slowly kill their partners, with poison or something.
Yeah, you get the Black Widow types,
or just the spurned ones. They got somebody on the side and they want to do it slowly.
Well, they wouldn't qualify as a jealous lover if
No,
they're
I'm
the
talking
ones.
about the spouse who got somebody on the side, then they want to kill them slowly and punish them for it.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of cases like that with the arsenic cyanide poisonings or even antifreeze. I know a case that used antifreeze.
Yeah, Brussels sprouts, things like that.
You're lucky I don't like Brussels sprouts.
Yeah, I know. I don't like them.
That's never on my grocery list.
Or a quiche. God almighty.
Category 10, killers of people that are, quote, in the way, like witnesses. They are extremely egocentric.
Not just their victim, but the people that may be witnesses too.
Yeah, like, I mean, okay, this is going to be a weird example since the tiny tower is standing right here. But say, like, I wanted to get you out of the way for something, like get insurance money or something, and she witnesses it.
Okay.
I would have to take her out too.
Got you.
To be in category 10.
She'd probably help you hide me. So
I was about to say, I mean, I could have a protege here.
Yeah, Brussels sprouts are worse. So he gets it. So that would be, like you said, insurance fraud, things like that.
Well, I mean, you also see like these, it reminds me of like the mafia type hits where they eliminate the witnesses that are going to testify against them.
Right.
Stuff like that. That's what my brain goes to.
So it's like, again, it's not just your victim, but anyone else that might have seen it.
Oh, there's a moth inside. Yeah. Just, if you're taking out witnesses and everything, obviously this is like you plan to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, okay, I don't want this witness coming out and helping, you know, catch me. So I got to take them out too. That's a category 10. Category 11 is similar, but the category 10 was not fully psychopathic. But category 11, they are full-blown, like, diagnosed antisocial personality disorders and just anybody that they perceive to be in the way.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter if that person actually is in the way or not. If they think that you're going to be a threat to them, they're going to take you out.
So I saw Netflix the other day or whatever channel it was, that movie Falling Down. And he finally has his snap, the Douglas guy. Michael Douglas, I think.
Yeah.
Kirk Douglas, I can't remember who. But anyways, would he fall under 10 or I mean, that'd be a spree killing.
I didn't watch the movie, so I don't know the circumstances of that one.
Oh, we need to watch that. We're going to pause for 90 minutes so we can go watch this movie real quick. No, it's basically the guy. He's obviously got issues, psychological issues or whatever. And he finally had one day, everything's just going wrong, and he just snaps. And Michael Douglas, thank you, it's Michael Douglas. And it's an extremely good movie. But I mean,
I always like him. So
one of the biggest moments is he's walking across this golf course, right? I mean, he's already killed some folks, and it's basically people who's just gotten his way or kind of just pissed him off at the wrong moment, right? And he's walking through this golf course, and this old man's out there golfing, and he's telling him get out of the way, clear the green, all this kind of stuff. And Douglas shoots his shotgun. Don't shoot him, but he pulls the shotgun out. I think he shoots up in the air at the guy's feet or something. The dude has a heart attack, and Douglas just stands there and watches him have it. Doesn't do nothing to help him and all that stuff. Just basically you deserved it because you yelled at me type situation. Yeah. So he would fall in this list somewhere. So I'm going to try to pay attention and see where I would put him.
Okay.
I don't know if it would be
that does
10.
sound like an interesting movie.
Yeah, we'll definitely watch it. Maybe tomorrow or something. But
we're only at 10.
Yeah, we're at 10 right now. So I wouldn't be jealousy. That's interesting. I'm going to have to do some thinking.
I don't know what, like I said, never saw that movie. I don't know what caused him to snap in the first place.
Yeah, we'll have to watch it. It's pretty good. There's several things, smaller things that just finally build up and he snaps.
The straw that breaks the camel's back finally. Well, now we're in a category 11. Oh, that is category 11, the fully psychopathic killers of people in the way.
Right.
So, yeah, they're going to get rid of anybody who might have seen something or could tell the police anything.
Well, his character in that movie is a good example of he's not an evil person, but he does some absolutely evil things in this movie because he snapped. He is no longer in his right mind. So he would kind of fill into the
category 12 is interesting because no one really comes to mind for that one. But those are category 12. That's power hungry psychopaths who murder when they're cornered.
When they're cornered, huh?
See, I don't know who would necessarily fit into that.
We don't know necessarily a person, or we may can come up with a character on the show or something. Yeah, LA traffic. That's what actually broke him. And I
dealing
get
with
that.
like 280 or Atlanta traffic. Sometimes I can kind of understand that.
Atlanta traffic for sure. I've never been to LA yet, but yeah, power hungry. I would think something like.
There's a lot of power hungry psychopaths out there, but I don't know any.
Okay,
I can't think of one.
You won't get this one, but some of the Marvel people out there, the Marvel comic book fans.
Yeah,
this would be like Kingpin, which is a Spider-Man villain. Daredevil, I think, is another villain that he's part of. But he is a power hungry. He's the mayor of what is there considered their New York. I don't know if it's actually New York in the comics, but
yeah.
He's the mayor of that town. He's worked his way up through the mean streets. Everything he does is to get more power, and he kills anybody who's in his way that he sees as a threat, or he has them killed, so he can gain that power and keep that power. So that would be that.
I guess if they're cornered, they feel like they're going to lose some of their power somehow. So they're going to lash out at whoever they feel is a threat.
Yeah,
to
anybody
them.
who's a threat, anybody that thinks they finally, it'd be like maybe the mob boss. When they think somebody's finally got them cornered, or they're become a threat, or trying to blackmail them or something.
I say, would Hillary then fall into that category?
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah.
Hey, I don't need any of my hosts getting arc incited. Let's not try that.
We are going to go ahead and say right now live, neither of us are suicidal. So
that's right. I have to do a proof of life every so often anyways, because of my
me.
wife. So. Yeah, that's actually a pretty good one.
Yeah, I was about to say, when Power Hungry came to mind, I was like, okay, who do I know this, like, who can I think of this power hungry like that, who would be threatened when, and all the people that have ever come out with any kind of information. I mean, that's a whole meme now.
And of course, all this is just
yeah, I mean, we're not actually accusing anybody of anything.
It's like the whistleblowers with Boeing.
Yeah.
You know, that somebody's got something on them. They see them as a threat, or they got them cornered with some sort of blackmail or something that's going to mess them up.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be people like that.
Because those whistleblowers are dying for some reason.
Yeah.
What's his name? Epstein, you know?
Oh, yeah.
He was about to start talking, apparently. You know, that's what the scuttlebutt was, is one of the many theories. He was going to start naming names. So.
Yeah, I think that would definitely qualify then. Then we get category 13. That's inadequate, rageful psychopaths, some who commit multiple murders. And then that, again, category 13 kind of gets in also with the same type of people that would commit mass murder too. They already feel inadequate. They feel unseen. They feel like they're invisible, like nobody can pay attention to them. So they are going to do something so drastic that you're not going to be able to help but see them. They're going to finally be noticed.
That falls back into like the school shooters. And
that's what I'm saying. Like that to me kind of ties in with the category 8s there. And what's category 14? Now these are the ruthlessly self-centered psychopathic schemers. So these are the people that are for themselves at all costs.
Right.
Like no matter what. It doesn't matter if, like, I guess it's their own families or anybody else like that. Whatever they want is going to happen no matter what, and they will eliminate anybody who gets in the way of that.
Yeah, it's their, like I said, they're talking about the schemers, so I guess it's in their plans, anything that gets in the way.
Brass, I'm actually going to get to that because
Gacy is actually named.
Yeah, Gacy is named in the book.
He's a little further down the list. He'll be
but I actually put somebody above him, so we'll get to that here in a minute.
We've got our own worst one, but Gacy is definitely one of the.
Yeah, he's going to be in the final category for sure. Yeah. I mean, now we're into, what is this? 1, 2.
Like I said, again, there's 22 total categories.
Yeah,
that Dr. Stone's come up with. We just finished section 1, 2, 3, 4 with category 14, which is the ruthless schemers. Now we're moving into category 15, which is section 1, 2, 3, 5.
That's spree, multiple murders, and psychopathy is apparent. This is somebody who definitely has antisocial personality disorder. It is noted, like they have all the traits, they fit all the criteria. Like these are now, this one in the next category. These are kind of the worst of the worst.
Yeah, these are the no doubt. They have all these markers.
Category 15 is psychopathic, cold-blooded spree or multiple murders, which I think is kind of your baseline right there for serial killers.
Do you have a list of what these I can't say this word.
Psychopathic?
Yeah, what they would be like narcissism and
Yeah,
what else falls into that?
I have it all underlined here. The glib speech, superficial charm, grandiosity, conning or manipulative, pathological liars, lack of remorse or guilt, callousness, lack of empathy towards other people, a failure to accept responsibility for their own actions. Sometimes these traits include the impulsivity, sexual promiscuity, poor behavioral controls, and a parasitic lifestyle.
Yeah.
So
we're getting pretty close to where I think, especially the last few categories.
I say we're actually coming up end of 8 o'clock. So 9 o'clock we can actually discuss them.
Yeah, the later ones. But I mean, once we get to level 7, category 17, that's when I think all of them have the level of sexual.
Most of them will, yeah.
Well, it may not be any kind of penetration or nothing, but they're sexual in nature. They get some sort of pleasure.
That's what I said. Most
U.S. politician.
The U.S. again has about 1 to 2% of the population is a diagnosed antisocial personality type, and they tend to overwhelmingly be like CEOs, people in high position of power, or politicians.
Yeah.
So I mean, and those type of people do gravitate towards those types of jobs because it helps with their sense of grandiosity. They feel more powerful.
I think another level too, like you said, the what would you say? The politicians and what else was it?
Like CEOs and stuff like that.
I think Major League Baseball umpires are also fall into that too.
I don't know enough about them.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of good names popping up here.
Yeah, basically the Patrick Batemans, 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, category 15.
Right down here, I mentioned Richard Speck too. So
yeah, category 15, I think is just a broad. We could put all of the known serial killers into category 15.
Yeah, even the ones below category 15, they would all still fall.
We're getting into this is the spree or multiple murders.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are all our serial killers now. But yeah, spree murder actually is a little bit different because that's no cooling off period, but usually multiple locations too. Mm-hmm. So 3 or more victims, multiple locations in a relatively short amount of time.
Right.
Like there's no cooling off period like there is with the serial murders. Mass murder, obviously 3 or more. There's no set definition, but I go with 3 or more in one location in a fairly short amount of time. Right. There's no break really.
You're talking about somebody going house type situation all in one evening.
And I think we actually had one of those in Canada, I think it was, because he pretended to be a cop.
Yeah.
So I think that was one of those.
There's that, I think it was across the ocean there, the island. Was it in Ireland or something? Where that camp was?
No, was that Sweden, Norway, somewhere like that. What was it? Was it July 7th or 17th?
I think it was 17th.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact date for that one, but yeah, he I think that one that actually would, I think, qualify as like a spree and a mass murder.
Yeah,
together. Like he did both. I mean, there were multiple locations, but the very ending of it was just him kind of corralling those kids on that little island for camp and then just picking them off. Which Netflix had, I don't know if they still do. Netflix actually has a phenomenal movie based on that case.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to watch. I mean, me especially as a mom, imagine sending your kid off to camp and then this happens, it's unimaginable. But yeah, that's category 15, just generally psychopathic, cold-blooded spree or multiple murders. Category 16 is actually psychopathic.
Here I found it. Oh. It's the Norwegian Labour Party. Let's see. Breivik, dressed as a homemade police uniform and showing false identification, took a ferry to the island and opened fire at the participants, methodically killing 69 and injuring 32 over more than just an hour, just a little over an hour. He done this, and it was Anders Behring Breivik. And it was off Norway.
Yeah, it was Norway, yeah.
Yeah, it was July 22nd.
Okay, that's what it was. I think the movie on Netflix is called 22 July.
I think so.
If it's still available. But again, y'all, that one's very difficult to watch, even for me. So just, if you go to find that movie, just keep that in mind. Like, if you're sensitive to stuff like that, it's very difficult to get through. 16, category 16, that's psychopathic persons committing multiple vicious acts that include murder. So these are like your rapes, I think rapes and everything would fall into that category too. You get your like kind of sexual sadists and everything, but they're not quite to the torture level just yet, because then that goes into category 17 and the rest of them.
Right. Committing multiple vicious acts. Yeah, I would think rape would definitely fall into that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's a vicious act, but I mean, I'm a woman, but
it's definitely a vicious act.
I say men get raped too.
I think, to me, a rapist is the lowest of the low. I mean, I'd rather somebody be a murderer than a rapist. That crawls all over me. I cannot stand it.
I was about to say, there seems to be something so much more violating about it than murder. I don't know. But now we're getting into the last category, which is category 17 through 22.
Yeah, there's Rex has commented on that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those you see once and you're like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need to see it
like
again.
Even for me, and you know how I love to rewatch stuff.
Yeah.
It was an excellent movie. It was very well done, but it's just incredibly difficult to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're getting into the last category. These are the most severe, and I guess what Dr. Stone classifies as the most evil. So in this little section, category 17 is the lowest of that.
Now, this is serial killers, torturers, and sadists.
Yeah.
These are going to be, your big three.
These are going to be the breathtaking, horrific stories.
Yeah, Rex, I agree. Rape is absolutely, to me, chair eligible. That
100%,
should be.
yeah.
And so many people just get slapped on the wrist, in my opinion. They're out of prison.
And they go on to do it again.
Yeah,
the recidivism rate for rapists and sexual predators is alarming.
Mm.
But yeah, category 17, these are the sexually perverse serial killers. The killing is to hide evidence, but there is no torture.
Yeah, BTK. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, BTK, he got his rocks off, but then he killed them so there wouldn't be any witnesses that could turn him in or get him in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. Picton, when we discussed him, I think a lot of that was like he mainly wanted to assault and rape those prostitutes that he brought back to the farm, but he killed them mainly just so he wouldn't get caught.
Well, and we mentioned that too, because his earlier ones he didn't kill.
Yeah.
He just done the rape. And then as he progressed, he realized, well, if I let him go, they're just going to tell on me.
Yeah.
So he had
and
to
a lot of these
killing.
people in this category, they have that period of escalation throughout their life. I mean, look at Jeffrey Dahmer, look at Ted Bundy. That's where McDonald triad comes in, like the cruelty to animals. It usually starts that way, and then they work their way up. Mm-hmm. So we see a lot of that in especially people in this last category.
Ed Gein?
Well, I don't know. Ed Gein, okay, he did kill the final woman, but he started out just digging up bodies.
Yeah.
And, mutilating the corpses and everything. I don't think that he would really classify very, very high. I don't think he'd fit anywhere in this last category.
Let's see. What was his actual kill count? Do we know? I'm looking it up real quick.
I say there was that one woman that the police found that worked in the general store or something that he had strung up and dressed like a deer, basically.
Yeah.
But I can't remember if she was the only one.
Yeah, I think that's the one that they did actually catch him on, right?
Yeah, I mean, they had known that somebody was robbing graves, and Texas Chainsaw and actually even Hannibal Lecter are kind of loosely based on Ed Gein.
Yeah, incredible guy. Yeah, it says that 2 murders confirmed.
2, yeah, that's what Stephen just said.
He said 7 others suspected, and there was 9 total corpses mutilated and tamed from desecrating graves that they know about.
Yeah.
Now, is he the one who was making lampshades and stuff out of them?
And the bowls out of human skulls and stuff like that. And the catalyst for him, I mean, he was already kind of like mentally deficient and everything and living with his mom, and his mom died.
Well, I mean, he was obviously progressing. He was going to continue to kill.
Oh, yeah. I mean, once he realized that, like, the skin and everything especially was better when it was fresh.
Yeah, it was
like
much more malleable. He could do more things with it. And that that like a full-grown man's skull is perfect amount of Cheerios in the morning. I mean, he was going to continue once he found those things out.
See, and y'all think I'm scary.
I didn't say I'd do it. I just think it makes sense.
Category 18. Now we've got our torture murderers. The torture element is not typically prolonged. Like, that may kind of some of the
McDonald triad, Ronald, Grimace, and Hamburglar. That's good. Was the Psycho guy based off Ed Gein? Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, for sure. I had to
Norman Bates.
I had to think about what Psycho was for a minute. Yeah, yeah, for sure it was.
Yeah, because I mean, well, he killed his own mother. Norman Bates did. But
you always hear about, like you said, Chainsaw Massacre based off of him for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's what everybody goes to. But yeah, Psycho definitely was based off of it.
I say Hannibal Lecter. They got some of his character traits from Ed Gein, but
Hannibal was a mixture of all the greats, really.
Yeah, but then what was it? Buffalo Bill was actually very, very tightly based on Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
Because of, wearing the cast and luring his victims in by like preying on their sense of empathy,
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, they see this guy struggling and everything. He's got a cast or he's on crutches. He needs some help. Women are drawn to that kind of thing.
I think
we want to help.
His main go-to was the arm, like he had his arm in a bandage or in a sling or something, and he would get them to help him load stuff up, whether it be groceries, things like that.
Bundy did that. Bundy also had like a set of crutches too that he would use.
I didn't remember. I mean, I don't doubt it. I just didn't remember the crutches.
Yeah, category 18. These are torture murders, but it's specifically the torture element is not prolonged.
Yeah.
So I think that's the important criteria there.
Yeah,
this is not somebody that enjoys drawing it out, making it last.
Yeah, Gary Heidnik he would fall later on because he did his torturing was drug out more. Well, where are we at now? Torturing.
We're getting into category 19 now.
Okay.
These are the psychopaths that are driven to acts of terrorism, like subjugation, rape, just short of murder, though. So, I mean, like you look at the terrorists and everything, especially look at October 7th.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of times what they did, even if most of the time, yes, they killed the women, but rape was a form of their torture specifically for the women and the children.
Oh, yeah.
So these would fall easily into category 19.
Well, they used it for terrorist reasons, and that's to instill terror. And that's, rape and torture, things like that they do. And that's just their way of life.
Well, I always tell people, and this is a nitpicky thing, kind of like my 28 Days Later thing, terrorism is not defined as simply trying to instill terror. These are acts that are committed because they have this ideological, political, religious type of motive behind it. They may not necessarily want to kill. They're just trying to make a point. That's really the motive there.
Yeah.
The killing is kind of secondary to that,
mm-hmm.
Even though they still rank in this final extreme category.
Since we're on the subject of terrorists, like the 9/11 attacks, that was pure murder. So those types would not be included in this.
I say this says short of murder, but I think that it would still include murders.
They just used murder to
enact their goals, like to get their point across.
But this being just short of murder, then you wouldn't fit.
Yeah, I mean,
this
if you've got like, it's not quite the same. The UK had a problem with these rape gangs there for a little while, and yes, I'm going to go ahead and be blunt. These were the Muslim immigrants that were coming in, and they just had gangs of them that were picking up these children and these women off the streets of like England and the UK and stuff, and just raping them to the point that there were so many of them, the police just stopped taking reports entirely.
They could. But now that is not those people.
That was not politically or ideologically motivated.
Well,
they were just
those people wouldn't fall into this.
Yeah, category. They wouldn't. They'd fall in like later or earlier on
because the way they'd done it. I mean, that's not.
But had they had some kind of political, religious motive to
that
it,
would be
they would fall under category 19.
Well, let's say 19 is psychopaths driven to terrorism, subjugation, rape, and etc., short of murder.
Yeah, like I said, if these people are using rape kind of as a torture method for a political goal, for an ideological goal, for a religious goal, they fall into category 19.
I think it'll be hard to find.
But I say most of it does include murder. I mean, they're just going to get rid of.
I think it would be hard to find one.
Oh yeah, Joseph Fritzl. Yeah, that one.
I think it would be hard to find.
We'll have to do one on him because he kept his daughter locked in a basement for a long time. Like it was ridiculous.
I think it'd be hard to find an individual to fall into category 19.
Yeah, I can't think of a specific individual.
Because if they're stopping just short of murder, they're not going to really last long.
Terrorism usually, it's typically like outside of Timothy McVeigh or the Unabomber or something, typically not individuals. They are usually kind of like the groups of people, like the network, kind of.
Now, let's see. Okay, here's an interesting thought. Would Charlie Manson fall into 19? Because he'd done all these things. He activated all these people, but he himself stopped short of murder.
I think he's guilty.
Anybody.
He's guilty of rape and everything, even though those women say that they've complied and they were willing and everything, but they were so manipulated and brainwashed. There's no real consent there at all.
But that's what I'm saying.
No, I don't think he would even fall in to this.
Well, just take the political part out of it.
I don't know. I don't know where cult leaders would
He's
fall
talking
in.
about, he said he used the word terrorism. I get it. But maybe we're getting locked up into the political side of it too far. Let's just look at to instill terror instead of political gain out of it, or the political ideology. It's still pushing his ideology, whether it be considered political or not.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know where a cult leader like Manson would really fall under this scale.
Well, let's say he straight up ordered murders.
Yeah.
And they just murder by proxy, basically.
Yeah, I mean, he was one of the only people on.
And he did.
They got convicted of first-degree murder, and he never actually physically killed anybody.
And he did instill terror across California and everywhere else around, So I think I would put him under 19 if it's just me. Because I think he fits everything else other than the political side of terrorism.
Yeah.
Other than that definition. Now, I like this. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Manson there's a lot of weird women out there that got married and fall in love with
Ted
these
Bundy got
people.
married in prison, and he got his wife pregnant in prison because they figured out where the security cameras couldn't see them, so they went by a vending machine.
Let's see. I also, one of the things here he mentioned, do you think that it's bad that movies seem to always go to nurture aspect of serial killer, whereas not going the nature aspect of it?
We actually do have in the works.
That
we're
may
gonna have
be
Zelda.
next show, actually.
We're gonna have Zelda back on for that one since she is about to graduate with a psychology degree. So we are gonna actually do a deep conversation in the nature versus nurture argument. So,
but yeah, I do think it's kind of. I think the movies in general romanticize serial killers. Even when they're not trying to, it always seems like they do.
My favorite movie on the nature nurture thing is called We Need to Talk, or We Have to Talk About Kevin, or We Need to Talk About Kevin.
No, that's Something's Wrong with Aunt, whatever. But yeah, we got to talk about Kevin.
Diane, but yeah, this one it's got what's his face from Step Brothers? He's the dad, the goofy one, not Will Ferrell. Names are completely blanking.
He's Shake and Bake.
He plays the dad in that one, and that woman that looks like an alien. She's like really tall and thin, like she just looks odd.
I never watched the movie, so I don't know.
You need to. But that boy, the way it portrays him in this movie is he's just born this way. There was nothing inherently wrong with their upbringing. They were very, very wealthy family, very well off. So kids were very taken care of. He was just a bad kid.
Wasn't it Bundy who was also well off in normal childhood?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say normal because the woman that he always thought was his sister was actually his mother, and there were rumors that her father actually had impregnated her. So who his grandfather was is actually his father too.
Right. John C. Reilly. Yeah, that's him.
That's the guy.
Yeah. The Japanese soldiers in Nanking in World War II, that was a massacre. I guess that would be politically motivated too, talking about terrorism.
Well, I mean, if we had a lot more time to go into the book, I mean, he talks about evil in peacetime versus in wartime.
Yeah, that's true. He does that's a whole other chapter, though.
Yeah. So I think that kind of runs.
Well, you know, the
else.
beauty of this book is we can do another show later.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to break it down by chapter, we can do like that too. But
hey, just for the record, you guys have over 500 people listening right now. You can run till you run out of gas, as far as I care.
Ooh,
okay,
excellent.
Don't say that. You know?
The next one's interesting because we see a lot of this.
Oh wait, well, thank you for 500 people listening. That's pretty awesome. Thank you.
That's almost overwhelming a little bit. Yeah. Like, that's so weird.
That deserves another cup of coffee.
Category 20 now. We're into the torture murders, but in people with a distinct psychosis like schizophrenia. And we do see that a lot sometimes. Like, these people have committed these horrible acts and one I'm thinking of was a paranoid schizophrenic and ended up killing just his family. And I mean, he peacefully turned himself into police, but I can't remember his name right now. But that's multiple murders and everything. And the voices were telling him to do it because they were corrupted somehow.
So would Son of Sam be in that too?
It's never really been confirmed that he heard the voice coming from the dog.
That's just what he was saying.
Yeah. Which might have just been him trying to get a insanity plea.
I actually agree with that. He was just trying to get.
Because he seems like, in all the interviews I've ever seen, he seems perfectly fine.
Right.
What's that? They rarely have a serial killer who had a great life. Yeah, I mean, they definitely do. They want you to kind of feel for the characters in these movies, even if they're bad guys. So they give you this sob story and everything, like, oh, I was abused. All these horrific things happened to me in childhood, so that's why I am the way I am today.
I also wonder how much of that is actually verified too, or if it's just them.
Well, remember, I mean, that lecture that we went, that doctor was talking about how most serial killers, they come from kind of similar backgrounds, right. Abusive, emotionally abusive, physically abusive. You get people that have dissociative identity disorder, which were severely sexually and often religiously abused.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that was a Criminal Minds episode where, Spencer Reed got abducted.
Yeah.
Because that was a guy with multiple personalities, but it was his dad who was like just this awful man who perverted the Bible and everything and like literally beat him with the Bible all the time and all these horrific things. But that's typically that's a very extreme psychological disorder. So it requires extreme abuse to make it happen. And it's usually always in children too. These are children that they don't have the coping skills mentally to deal with what's being done to them. So they kind of create this other persona to take it on for them and deal with it for them. And that persona just kind of becomes a real thing. So anytime they feel that emotion again, they completely disassociate and that other personality comes out.
It's split personality, but what's it called now?
Dissociative identity disorder. Multiple personalities like psychopathy and sociopathy are outdated terms. They're not used in clinical settings anymore.
Well, I'm an outdated person, so I still use those terms.
I say most people still just understand those terms better.
Mm-hmm.
And psychopathy and sociopathy, they're very, very similar. There's a ton of overlap between the two. I mean, they're kind of interchangeable at this point.
Oh, I get them confused all the time. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Criminal Minds, like Daniel's got to the point sometimes where if I'm binge watching it, he's like, I just can't take any more of this show right now. He's like, you got to switch to something else.
It's especially when it gets to the sexual ones,
yeah,
or children involved. I can't handle that for long periods of time.
Now, see, okay, I want to go to category 21 real quick because I kind of think
our guy. We're ready?
Yeah, I kind of think our guy might actually fit into that one better just because of the criteria for it. So, category 21 is a psychopath committing extreme torture but not known to have killed. Because our guy was never convicted of any murders.
Oh, just because they couldn't find bodies.
I was about to say, we know that he obviously
I would leave
did.
him 22.
Okay, so who 22. Would go into 21 then? The extreme torture but not known to have killed.
Oh.
Because I can't think of anybody. Everybody I know of, committed murder.
Yeah. I mean, I guess because they didn't find and they didn't convict him on it. I guess technically he would fall into 21.
Yeah.
Just because they couldn't convict him on anything like that.
Yeah. David Parker Ray. That's the one that we were going to talk about. That's the one that I mentioned that is very difficult even for me to talk about because that is so beyond the pale. I mean, it's exactly the definition of evil, what he did.
Oh, it's the worst of the worst, in my opinion.
Yeah, he was the toy box killer. And he did have an accomplice, and she actually, I think, got paroled in 2019.
Yeah.
Her name was Cynthia Hindi, but they called her Cindy Hindi, which I've always found slightly amusing. But yeah, just he had this mobile trailer basically that he set up as a torture room.
You've never heard of this fella? Oh my goodness.
David Parker Ray, this
one. There is a reason a lot of people hadn't heard about him because of what he done and how he done it and just now we mentioned earlier evil people versus evil deeds.
This was an evil person.
This is an evil dude.
And that's why he was committing the evil acts that he was doing.
As far as he committed or as deeply as strongly as he's committed to what he was doing is astounding to me. And the level that he took it and the extremes that he took it and what he did to these women.
The worst, I can't necessarily say the worst part because the torture obviously was the worst part, but it was not just physical torture that David Parker Ray was doing to these women that he abducted. He actually had a tape that he recorded.
Yeah, we can read some of that in here.
And I'm not reading anything from that tape. I can't.
Well, go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, it was his orientation for these women, essentially. And these women are already, tied down to a table. They're naked. They're scared. I mean, this is the worst possible situation they can imagine themselves being in. And now they hear this tape start playing where he tells them in great excruciating detail everything that he's going to be doing to them. I mean, this is stuff that included things like bestiality too. So there's this mental and emotional aspect to the torture. And he even had mirrors installed in this trailer and would force their eyes open and everything and make them watch what he was doing to them.
Go fill my coffee. I'll fill them in since you don't like it.
I was gonna say I can't deal with that tape. It makes me nauseous.
Now there is a tape where you can listen to him, and it is his own voice, and we absolutely. Do you want another? Yes, please. She's making me coffee, so and it's him in his own voice, very calmly, just matter of fact, talking to him about telling these women what's exactly that's going to happen. And if you read the transcripts of it, it's 16 pages long. This tape is...
I say it was minutes long.
Yeah, this tape is several minutes long of him just talking, explaining in great detail what he's going to do, what parts of the body he's going to experiment on, what things he's going to be using on them, not just his own anatomy, but he had tools, gynecological tools, several different kind of clamps, things like that.
Yeah, wasn't it a gynecological table that he had installed into that trailer?
Yeah, he had the table with the stirrups. He had chain hoists so he could hold them completely up in the air. They wouldn't even on the table all the time. He could turn them in any direction he wanted to. Here's a little bit of that, a brief excerpt from the introductory tapes, what he called it. And this is now again, he had a accomplice with him. And this is what he tells. This is what these women who are already subdued, already terrified. They in the worst imaginable position they could be in and still be alive. This excerpt. Here's what part of it says: is my lady friend and I have been keeping sex slaves for years. We both have kinky hang-ups involving rape, dungeon games, etc. Our fetishes and hang-ups include stringent bondage, a little sadism. You're going to be here for a month or two, maybe even 3, if you keep us turned on. if it's up to my lady, we'd keep you indefinitely. She says it's just as much fun and less risky, but I personally like variety. So
I mean, it's as a woman that is completely nauseating to me. Like that's something I can't wrap my brain around that.
We're eventually going to do a whole show on him, but it'll probably be mostly me talking on this.
I was about to say that one's going to have to take some.
The trailer was
me.
I don't know the exact dimensions, but it was a mobile home. It's not like you would think a small car trailer. Don't think like that. This was a full size double wide mobile home that he had retrofitted with sound deadening.
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah, he had sound deadening on it. Let's see what else was there. All the equipment was already installed. I mean, he made it so they could scream and be as loud as they could and not be heard outside.
I say because he enjoyed their screams too.
Exactly.
Turned him on.
He put a lot of time, and it could be a snuff video on Pornhub. Yeah. That's pretty good. But it's just unbelievable when they talking about evil acts versus evil person. This was an evil person doing evil acts, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it takes an evil person to come up with that kind of thing, to actually make it happen.
When I do the show on this one, I'm going to go into as much as I can his childhood and try to crack it and figure out. I'm sure some experts have done the same.
I say I'll definitely be in on that episode, but it's going to take some.
Yeah,
it's going to take a lot of preparation time for me because that's the hardest one for me to talk about personally.
Yeah, and like he meant. Mr. Brass mentioned Albert Fish, and we was going to talk about him too
last night, just because of the letters.
Oh yeah, we was going to bring him up too, as far as this level or maybe the next level. And the only reason I
don't think he tortured the girl really. I mean,
but no, just what he did afterwards.
He tortured the family obviously with the letters. So yeah,
that's still to me. I mean
that's extreme psychological torture right there for a parent.
And he had to torture those kids and.
That really was not the.
Even if it wasn't prolonged,
I was about to say. I mean, he would definitely fall into this final category, obviously.
But as far as just being worse, as far as an evil person, you may be onto something because that takes a different level there.
Yeah.
To talk about how the kids tasted and all this kind of stuff, that's pretty messed up.
And then tell the parents she died a virgin.
Yeah.
Like I didn't do anything to her.
Yeah, that's kind of helpful in a way, though, honestly.
If you can trust anything somebody like that says, I mean.
I don't care. I'm going to choose to. That's what they told me. That's fine. I'm going to choose to believe that.
Now, see,
the only reason I'm putting Parker Ray in 21 and not 22 is because they didn't find any bodies, so they couldn't charge him with murder.
I say he was only ever convicted of like torture and rape, I think.
Yeah.
Kidnapping.
And now he had life sentences. He wasn't going to get out nowhere. He did wind up dying in prison with a heart attack.
About a year after that conviction, everything, he died of a heart attack, which I think is entirely too nice.
He was in his 60s, I think. He wasn't even that
Dr.
old.
Stone, I think if that was like if one of those girls was our daughter, there's going to have to be an entirely new category created just for me. For what I would do to somebody like that. Like, no. Like, just go ahead and let him out. Like, it's fine.
I think that would fall under category 1, which would, justifiable homicide right there.
Well, to us it would, but the prolonged torture sounds pretty good if you're a parent and, one of your children was subjected to that.
Right. Now, like I said, they never found any bodies from David Parker Ray and his victims, but they also didn't find any victims.
I was about to say, nobody ever came forward.
They had to have
disposed of him.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, somebody's not going to
the extreme torture and everything. These women could not have withstood it.
Right.
I just don't think that everything that they did would be survivable.
And the reason I'm fully convinced that he absolutely killed them is
Gary Plausch was good, but again, I would consider that more justifiable. I mean, he was trying to protect his child, and that was quick. I mean, he just shot the guy, so there was no torture, nothing like that.
I think he actually got cleared. They didn't charge him with anything.
Rightly so.
I think they should have gave him a medal.
I've always told you, like, if I was any of the cops in that airport or something, anybody standing in that airport when it happened, you would have the investigators come like, what did you see? I didn't see anything.
Mm.
I didn't see a dang thing.
I saw a hero walking by. That's awesome. The Law-Abiding Citizen movie. That's a great one, Tim. That's a good movie.
I do love that one.
I like the whole storyline, and I agree.
And now he did torture one of the guys. Remember?
Cut his fingers off and stuff.
Well, he did.
Oh yeah, he did.
Took him out to that abandoned warehouse where he had retrofitted it to.
Cutting the fingers off was in Man on Fire. That's when I was thinking that.
Yeah,
where his hands were strapped to the steering wheel.
Yeah,
Law-Abiding Citizen. That's one of them for the quote unquote villain. I'm cheering for the villain every time.
Yeah, I mean the dad in that one. What's his face's character? Absolutely loved him.
I love we got, like Rick had mentioned, 500 people listening to it, which is amazing. But they're probably thinking like, why in the world am I listening to people go, what's his face? That guy in that movie that we saw that one time.
For some reason, actors and actresses right now are just not coming to me.
Right, I can picture the dude. He's a guy that was in 300.
Irish or Scottish or something, isn't he?
I don't know.
Wait, which movie are we talking about? I probably
Law-Abiding Citizen. It's that good-looking feller.
Gerard Butler.
Him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
I think he's Irish or Scottish or something. I think he's Scottish.
But anyways, back to Denzel. Yes,
that's a great movie.
Now back to the David Parker Ray. The reason I'm absolutely 100% convinced that he killed all these people is because of Cindy Hindi. It says, no bodies were ever found. And it says that Hindi was arrested along with him, but she served 20 years behind bars. On her, she was convicted of rape and kidnapping. And the reason she got out instead of wasn't in there for life like he was, he's a Scotsman, is because she turned state's evidence on him and copped a plea. That's how they caught him.
I don't think you should get a plea deal in that kind of case.
Well, she did prison time, but she was able to get parole.
But I'm just saying, like, you can tell us everything, but it's not going to save you.
She was in parole. She was able to parole. That's the deal she cut. And the let's see, I'll find it right here.
I say Daniel's already got one pulled up. So.
Yeah, this is just from Fox 13 News. I was talking about it once she got out. It was this Fox from Kent, Washington, because once she got out, that's where she wound up being. It was in the city of Kent, Washington, and she lived there now. She's changed her name. She's no longer goes by Cynthia Hindi.
Although nowadays, I don't know how many people would even know about her.
Yeah, but it says that she lives, even gives the woman's address on here, but I'm not going to give that out here.
Jeez, I didn't know they would go to that.
Yeah. Well, she had to register as sex offender.
Oh, yeah, she did.
But yeah, she got out in July 2019. Part of her deal, she had to be put on the sex offender registry as a level 2 offender. And that is defined as people who have a moderate risk of reoffending. So a moderate risk of reoffending.
I don't know. I mean, I can kind of see that because the accomplices, the women like this, particularly when the accomplice is a woman, I don't actually think that they would do that unless they found kind of the leader. There's always a leader and a follower in a duo like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And she was definitely the follower.
Yeah. Now, the men, like you get into, there's a movie about him just called Henry.
Oh, but, yeah. Yeah.
Like he was more the follower, but then, I mean, you still saw like once he kind of got a taste for it, he just kept doing it on his own. So men, I think, are kind of more likely for that duo to kind of split off and, each go their own direction. But women, I think, are less likely unless they find someone else like that with those similar tastes who get them to do it all over again.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. It says here that he had fought her, got mad at her or whatever, and wound up punching her.
Yes, Stephen, there's always a sub and a dom.
Yeah. Wound up, punching her. They got in a fight with her. He bruised her up pretty bad. And that was the catalyst to get her to basically turn him in. And
Well, she
decided
had to.
that,
Eventually, he was going to start treating her like he did all his victims. So,
right.
I'm sorry. Like, you can't expect him to do all this stuff and then not do it to you.
Right. Now, the way he actually got caught is a woman named Cynthia Jaramillo. I guess it's a Jaramillo. She actually did escape from his torture then. And it says that she was able to escape, and she let me find. I just was reading it. I just saw it. Anyway, she was able to escape and reach the doors of a neighbor's house, and they actually heard her as she escaped because she was obviously screaming her heads off.
Yeah.
And they actually called it in, and they found it, and that's how they had actually caught him with the torture room and all that stuff. Now, Cindy, the girl Cindy Hindi, I think they was actually married. I think they was just boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yeah, I don't think they were married.
But she'd been with him for years, and he was always abusive to her. And according to her, that he had some blackmail images and stuff like that too to keep her in line, which is pretty standard.
Yeah.
But he was physically abusive, and when she finally did go to the cops, basically to save her own self, I think, because by this point, this other woman
knew it was getting down to that.
But
that
she
wire.
agreed to turn state's evidence against him, and that's where the plea deal come in, where she was able to actually get life, but with a possibility of parole, and which she did wind up getting parole. So
yeah, I don't like the idea of like her being a part of all of that.
And that's the thing,
getting
is
a
like,
deal.
if you had
it's infuriating to me.
You had a witness, this Cynthia girl who again, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce her last name, but she escaped. If you have that plus his dungeon and everything, why give Cindy the deal? You would think you have enough. But I guess they wanted that one more level, since they had no bodies. They wanted that one more level. And by the way, what I was getting to with the bodies is Cindy did in her testimony say there was dozens.
Yeah.
She didn't have exact amount, but she said dozens of victims.
Yeah, I mean, some of these women had to die.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
and she said that they killed them.
There's no way they could survive that.
But also and just the morbid curiosity, I want to know how for that many victims, assuming that Cindy was telling the truth about dozens, what did he do with the bodies so they was never found? How?
Yeah, that's a great question, because we were actually going to mention Eileen Wuornos, Brass. I'm actually glad you brought that up, because I think she would fall into this. She didn't have remorse, so.
Oh no, she was proud of her killings.
Yeah, but this was somebody that was. I mean, it stemmed from a brutal rape that one of her Johns inflicted on her. I mean, he raped her anally with like a baseball bat.
Yeah, I mean
it was horrific what happened to her, and
it broke her. I mean, that's part of her.
She was already like kind of teetering on the edge of being broken. I mean, she was just one of those tragic women. Like, you see those cases all the time. Like, she was abused and everything as a child, ran away from home, turned to prostitution, all that kind of stuff. It's a horrible story in general. Yeah. Like, she just was not okay by the time this happened anyway.
And what's unique about her is that that's typically the victim pool that serial killers search from. I mean, that's pretty common, as the prostitutes. But here's a prostitute that turned the tables, basically, and began hunting the Johns. She flipped
the script. She reversed it.
Yeah. So, I don't think she was evil. She done evil things.
Yeah.
And she was broken, but she didn't just.
It wasn't because like she necessarily wanted to. The motive for her murders and everything was robbery. She was trying to survive still.
Yes. But it would be.
And no, I don't feel sorry for her at all, but that is just the fact of that case.
Oh, yeah. And her victims, this may sound bad, I don't know, but they weren't necessarily innocent. They were out looking.
No, one was.
The
body they never found.
I'm going to get there. But in general, they were out looking for a prostitute. So, I mean, they wouldn't out just like go on their way to Bible study and say, "Ooh, look, here's somebody hitchhiking. Let's give them a ride." In her mind, that was justifiable enough right there.
Yeah.
They were, and then once the act started, she even talked about how she was like PTSD in a way,
flashback,
and that would spur the murders.
Yeah, but there was that one man who was a Christian man and everything, and he actually just genuinely picked her up because he thought she needed help.
Mm-hmm.
And she pulls the gun on him and everything, and is robbing him, and he's telling her like, "I'm not going to do anything to you. I'm I didn't pick you up for sex." None of that. I think he was a church man. I can't remember exactly, but his son, I think, actually during the trial reached out to her and said, "Can you at least just tell us where Dad's body is?" And she never would tell him.
Yeah, like I said, she had no remorse about what she did, because I think in her twisted mind, she justified every one of them.
Yeah, she did not accept responsibility for her actions, really. Like, I mean, she admitted that she did it all, but she took no responsibility for it. That's two different things.
And then, like her final words, I mean, her mind was broken. She was definitely out of it.
I have pity for people like her, but I don't. That's different, I think, than feeling sorry for them.
Yeah, absolutely. The same thing with Dahmer. I don't feel sorry for him, but I pity what he was going through. But yeah, now as far as just women who kill, not talking about Eileen
I could
here.
do several episodes on those.
they typically do use the poison and stuff like that. Much more sneaky type.
Diane
killings.
Downs didn't. She shot all three of her children. Only one of them died, though.
And
but
like some of them do the drowning things too.
Andrea Yates.
Who was the one that run the car off in the water?
Oh, I can see her face in my mind.
But see, the women, they either do like loved ones or their children, spouses. Like you don't find them that go hunting.
I'm about to say Eileen Wuornos was kind of I guess you could call her a pioneer in that way, because like she had no connection to these people.
Right, like but like I said, mainly women, they do loved ones.
Or sometimes, there's that one nurse who was a male, but you get the Angels of Mercy.
Yeah. Now, would women in that situation, would they fall into category 7 back up here? Where
Probably,
it says where the murdered loved ones and things like that.
Because Diane Downs absolutely would be a category 7. I mean, she was extremely narcissistic.
Eileen Wuornos would not be category 7. She'd be further down.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about her. I don't think she was ever diagnosed with a lot of she had some of the traits.
She may not be diagnosed, but I could diagnose her myself. I mean,
she didn't have all of the criteria. She didn't meet all of the criteria for psychopathy at all.
Not all of, right.
So she had, a few, some to a few, but she was manipulative enough just to get in the car with him, but that was just what she was doing anyway. I mean,
they wasn't innocent. They was out looking.
Yeah.
The vast majority, except for maybe that one.
Yeah.
Perhaps that one. We're just going off what she said. We don't know that he may have been out there.
She was very, very open about her crimes. And she would freely talk about what these men said when she was in the car, what they did. And she talked about that man begging her for his life.
Yeah. So, I mean,
he said, "I'll give you all the money that I've got in my wallet. I'll give you my credit card. Just let me go on."
Right.
Because, that was her motive. She just needed the money to survive to the next day.
Right. But as far as her not being diagnosed with anything, that's fine. Maybe she wasn't. But her final words right here, her last words, she was put to death on Independence Day, July 4th, 1996. Her last words was, quote, "I'd just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock and I'll be back, just like Independence Day, with Jesus, June 6th, like the movie, big mothership and all, I'll be back."
I mean, her final statement was just bonkers.
She was out of her mind. I mean, she was broken to the point that, sure, they may not make no diagnosis, but the woman was broken and completely out of her gourd.
There was a lot wrong with her mentally. But I just don't think psychopathy was one of those things.
Well, what would you call it then? Just nuts?
There's
got to be something.
That could be, she wasn't a torture murder, but in people with distinct psychosis.
Yeah. It is a psychosis. We don't know what it would actually be.
Yeah.
be under. But I would think like maybe paranoid schizophrenic type.
Could have been. I mean, schizophrenics don't always necessarily hear voices specifically.
Mhm.
I mean,
well,
that comes in with like hallucinations and stuff. And I think it could also, if she already had stuff like that when she was younger, because she bounced around so much, nobody was ever able to take care of her.
Did she hit the streets when she was like 14 or 15 years old?
Something like
Very
that.
young,
She was like the Tiny Tyrant's age, I think.
But then, like I said, I think that lifestyle, her past, her childhood, and then the rapes that happened, I think that finally just broke her. And she would have, I'm sure they was John's that she didn't kill.
Probably.
That probably went fine. But there was something with some of these that triggered that PTSD she had, and she would kill them. And so I don't think she was an evil person. She done evil things. But
yeah, most of these people that we've talked about, not necessarily evil people, but have done evil things.
I think there's two on my list that are evil people.
But say we haven't
David
even done.
Parker Ray is one of them.
And we can go to category 22 because that's where now Gacy comes in.
Category 22.
That's Dr. Stone's number 22. This is the highest level of evil on his ranking system. And these are the psychopathic torture murders with torture as their primary motive. And he has a notation here that the motive it doesn't always have to be sexual, but they are the torture murders. And Gacy did that.
Yeah. Gacy fits every criteria for this. He's the classic one for category 22.
I mean, he kept his victims alive as long as he could to torture them. Half the time, he would even have them bind themselves. They didn't know they were doing it for that reason, but he would do the rope trick or the handcuff trick.
Well, and the rope trick and even he put a bag over some of their heads and stuff too. But he would get them to the point they would pass out, asphyxiate them to the point they'd pass out. Then he'd stop.
Yeah,
so let them wake back up and he could start over.
Yeah.
I mean, now again, Parker Ray to me would be a 22, but because the technicality of not having the bodies, and they couldn't pin murders on him legally, he would be a 21, I guess.
Yeah.
But 100% he's a 22.
Yeah.
In reality.
I think so too.
Gacy is a textbook guy for 22, the top category.
Who else would we put there? Because, Bundy didn't really torture, and neither did Dahmer. That wasn't like any
Dahmer's, his experiments could be argued to be torture with the drilling the heads. I was
about to say they were never prolonged tortures. It always ended pretty quickly.
But torture was never his intent.
No.
So, BTK tortured.
Yeah, but his was always, it wasn't ever prolonged because that wasn't also really his aim.
How do you classify prolonged? Hours to me is prolonged.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
if you're the one being tortured, 20 minutes is prolonged.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
and I mean, BTK did string up a little girl.
Yeah,
younger than our daughter.
He kept
in her basement and everything. So,
I would put Kemper 22 if he prolonged torture, but he didn't do that. Everything else kind of falls into that category, but he never. Now he tortured animals, but I don't think he tortured people.
Well, we have to be a little bit inclusive, Brass. But again, this was actually Dr. Stone's choice for number 22. He said Gacy is the perfect example of a category 22.
Yeah. Now Gacy. Now that was the Pride Month.
Well, he was a homosexual man.
No. That was the bad Gacy. Remember, there was two sides to Gacy.
Yeah, he always
he
had to separate that because he couldn't. His dad so abused him and called him a sissy all the time.
Oh yeah,
because he would rather bake like with his mom or sew with his mom or do stuff like that with his sisters.
And Gacy says himself that the parts of him that was the Democrat representative, the one that was the clown, Patches and Pogo, the ones where he was out hitting the streets, raising money for all these charities and things like that. The straight side of Gacy, that to him was the good Gacy. That was his good part.
He was married, and I think he had 2 children over the course of his life.
Could be. I don't
think
recall.
2.
And then,
but that first wife said, after that, we never had sex anymore.
Yeah.
Like he would rather go out. She's like, I knew he was a homosexual.
Yeah, and he would do that was his bad side. He he was trying to make a case in my mind.
He couldn't reconcile it because of his dad. He was named after John Wayne, like the most like macho of the macho men. Like, you're not supposed to behave like this. You're supposed to want to do manly things and not want to bake with your mom or sew with your sisters or something.
Yeah, his dad his father had an idea of what his son had to be.
Yeah.
And when John come out, and I mean, he named him John Wayne after the actor. And when he come out as not John Wayne, the abuse started. I mean,
yeah, Dad basically thought he could beat the gay out of him, essentially. I mean,
so he saw the gay side of him as the bad.
And his dad taught him that.
Yeah, so when he would, in his interviews later, he would say there was two sides. There was the good side, which was everything I mentioned.
Everything he thought he was supposed to be doing.
And then the bad side was the gay side of him, and that's where that come in at.
But what's funny is, like, the good side, that was all an act. Because that's not who he was. I mean, even he knew that that's not who he was. Who he was when he went prowling for these young men.
Yeah, that was his true nature, for sure.
But again, he put on that good side was a front that he put up for everybody so that they wouldn't know that he was gay. And, because he was supposed to hide that part of him because it was the bad side.
Yeah,
so you kind of feel sorry for him a little bit that way.
Again, not necessarily sorry, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
Pity, yeah.
Yeah, looks like Marion, what did you say? Marion Morrison Gacy was his wife. Yeah.
Was that the first wife?
She was married to John. No, that's his mom, apparently.
Oh, okay.
Well, I don't know now. I'm looking at the wrong thing, maybe. You go ahead. Let me do the research on Marion.
Yeah, no, we're not doing the like whole cis thing or anything. Like, we're just explaining why Gacy felt about himself the way that he did.
That's what.
I mean, that's kind of basically what his dad taught him. Oh, John Wayne's real name.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I see what you're doing now. I got you. Yeah, that makes sense now. Like I said, the name with the Gacy at the end threw me. I was. It's what you're saying is homophobic, evil, cis white males. It's the reason Gacy did what he did. In his mind, perhaps, because that's what his dad would have been.
He didn't use it in the terms like this,
Lord,
we're seeing used all the time today, obviously. But the idea is generally the same. It was beaten into him.
But his father, John Wayne Gacy's father, would be considered a homophobic, cis white male.
Yeah. 100%.
Again, the evil being tossed around. Necessary evil? No, I probably wasn't evil, but he did evil things.
Evil things. You got to keep in mind, like, his age and his generation too.
Oh yeah,
we're talking about these cultural things that exist even when the culture starts shifting.
Oh yeah,
you can't call somebody evil for thinking that something that back when they were growing up that was completely normal.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say that that's evil, that they still hold that idea. I mean, obviously, like we talked about racism at the beginning, like everybody calls racism evil. I don't know that it's necessarily evil if you act on it and like do the lynchings and all the horrific things that were done to
the evil
innocent
acts that go along with it.
Yeah. Like obviously but there are those people that still exist, and I'm not making excuses for it because I'm not one of them and I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
But that feel like, the races are different somehow.
Okay, here's the thing with racism. We'll touch on that for a second. I don't care what you say or what you do or what you think, whatever. They ain't but one race as humans. And there's not white people, or there's not black. There's not every individual on this earth is a shade of brown.
Yeah.
We are all the same. We're all the same color on the inside. And our skin it all depends on how much melatonin we have in it. We are all a shade of brown. We're all the same race of people.
That kind of reminds me of one of those memes that I've shared that I think that scared you once. It said, like, it had a white and a brown egg. Sitting there, says, when you crack us open, we all look the same.
Yeah, exactly. We do. So, I mean, race is a made up term. And the evil, now, like I said, racism is so used now that it's lost its bite.
Yeah.
I'm not white. I'm melanin challenged. Evil the word racism has lost its bite because everybody uses it and everything. You can just if you're a quote unquote white person that disagrees with somebody, then you're immediately
a racist.
You're
racist. You're a homophobe. You're some kind of phobic or ist or I don't know.
And evil, the word evil has fallen into that too. It's overused now to the point it's saturated, and it just doesn't work anymore.
I get called evil every single day on X
just because you disagree.
because I say that people should not kill their prenatal children.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, that makes me evil. And like, obviously, that's not evil. Yeah. If I'm going around like killing people outside of abortion clinics, that act would be evil.
Yeah.
But no,
okay. And here's another thing about how. When we're talking about serial killers or mass murderers and all that stuff, if we're going to put evil on a level, you just brought up the killing people outside of the abortion clinic. Well, what about killing people inside the abortion clinic with abortion doctors? Okay. Now, I'm not trying to jump on abortion and all this kind of stuff.
That brings up like the George Tiller case.
That's exactly where I was headed.
Yeah. Because he was shot outside of the clinic, or was he shot inside the clinic?
I don't recall.
I can't remember either. He was known as Tiller the Killer, and I just remember hearing the news stories of when he died. But I do believe he was shot. But yeah, I think absolutely in some of these episodes we're going to get into with especially either serial or mass murder because they do multiple a day. I'm going to absolutely qualify abortion doctors and providers into this because to me that qualifies.
Which one was the? There was one arrested a while back.
Gosnell was arrested.
That's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, and that one we'll have to do a 2-hour one on him too because he slipped through the cracks. Like there was absolutely no reason for that man to be practicing medicine when he was.
No, but like I said, that's how many kills did he have?
Oh God, I mean he was probably in the thousands.
Yeah.
By that point.
And question, take the abortion side out of it. Just the number
of human beings intentionally killed.
Yeah. Versus the way it's done. Like they will, is evil just a body count, or is evil the way you do it?
Yeah, that's actually what we were talking about that sparked this whole episode too the other night. It was just last week that he had asked me that exact question. Like, is it how many people you killed? Because then you get, somebody like the bombers, like Timothy McVeigh or the 9/11 guys, like they got high body counts,
The guy, we mentioned him earlier in Las Vegas, shot up
Stephen Paddock, that was his name.
This guy at the island that we talked about there in Norway, he had 62 kills and 30 something. That was just a mass murder or a killing spree. Is that more evil than someone who tortured and killed only 6?
And this is where we could actually bring in whoever's listening if they want to get in on the chat. I don't know if it's on Facebook too, but we're getting mostly comments from X. But what in your minds would make an act more evil? Is it how the murder is done, or is it body count, or is it something completely different,
Yeah. Or is it fair to even put a level on evil? Like the Dante's 9 levels of hell. Does it make sense, or is it fair to? And I have my own opinion on this too, but I'm just kind of putting it out there for people to think about it. Does it make sense, or is it fair to put a level of evil? Is a certain type of murder worse than another type? Is someone who kills 200 people, let's say a nurse or a doctor that does the angel of mercy or angel of death, angel of mercy?
Yeah.
Where they euthanize human beings that are in pain or suffering or in a coma or something like that. And they kill 200, but the way they do it is not quote unquote evil. Or is it someone like, we're talking about serial killers, the ones that do these sadistic and horrible acts.
Like the extreme tortures.
But they only kill, say, 6.
Yeah.
Is that worse than?
See, Brass actually just brought up one of my criteria because I think, and I know you've agreed with me on this, when it involves children, I think it is more evil than someone who targets adults, maybe. Like, obviously, all these people, these victims are innocent people.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, in my mind, it's so much worse. It's so much more evil when it's a child.
Yeah, an innocent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but again, all of the victims are innocent.
I think there would have to be levels, kids and women. If you take somebody and take their life, I guess our count's 187 right now on your feed.
That's pretty cool.
Which is coincidentally the code for murder.
Yeah, 187. That's awesome. To count more as evil as
we're killing it tonight.
like Mr. Brass down here says, what would count more as evil is who the victims are and the intentions. And Rex up here is kind of doing the same thing, kind of echoing that. And that's kind of how I feel too. It's who the victims are.
Because see, to me, an adult has the capacity to get away that a child is way less likely to have.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, the one who drowned them in the bathtub.
Andrea Yates.
That one boy.
Oh, the oldest boy, he was actually, she had just drowned the youngest one. I think it was like 6 or 9 months old.
Yeah, he was trying to get away.
And he was actually crying and apologizing to her, saying, Mama, I'll be good. I'll be good.
And the mother's nature
is to protect. I mean,
so she went against everything a mother's supposed to do.
Actually, no, Andrea Yates didn't. She thought she was protecting her children. She was deeply religious.
Oh, well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's like, that's where I was building up to. Okay. That she went against everything that a mother's nature is supposed to do. And she basically chased down her oldest child and drowned him and drug him back in the room and drowned him. And now, like you mentioned, he was
the only one that she left in the bathtub too. The rest of them were put in the bed. And
now she done this because her mind was twisted.
Her doctor, she had severe postpartum depression for all of her pregnancies, and she had 6 children. And the doctor told her husband, repeatedly, you do not need to leave her alone with the children.
Right.
So what does he decide to do? Leave her at home to homeschool all of them.
Right.
But she had actually done this. The mother-in-law was she was always coming by during the day to be with Andrea and kind of keep an eye on things. She actually had car trouble, I think. And Andrea Yates, in the hour before she got there, that's when she killed all her children. But she thought that she was protecting them from hell.
Right.
Essentially.
She thought she was saving them.
Yeah. She thought that she was sending them to heaven and protecting them that way.
So it's obviously extremely evil acts that she done. And I would put that as some of the most disturbing, especially the fact that she had to go chase him and pull him back into that room.
Yeah. I mean, that's a level of determination that.
Yeah. But again, her mind was not right. She was gone.
Yeah, I don't think she ever got the death penalty. I don't even know if she got life in prison for that because of her mental illnesses.
Right. Now, Rex mentioned Susan Smith. She's the one that drowned them in a car. She said that a black man had stole her car and with the kids inside it and everything like that. And her motivation was to facilitate a relationship with some guy.
So that's Diane Downs too.
Yeah.
Because she did the same thing for her guy.
It says Tom Finley was the guy's wealthy man named Tom Finley. And prior to the murder, she had sent Smith a letter ending the relationship and expressing the reasons because he did not want children.
See, okay, that mirrors exactly Diane Downs because I think her guy was named Steve. He was married, but he and his wife didn't have any children because he had always said, I don't want to have children. So even though he was having an affair with her and he would actually come hang out with the kids, he'd bring them little gifts and everything, and he was good with the kids. Mm-hmm. He flat out told her, I'm not leaving my wife to marry you because I don't want to be a dad.
Right.
So she shot her 3 children.
Mm-hmm.
One of them actually died. One ended up paralyzed.
So that to me, again, that's borderline evil because there's intent. There's a selfish reasonings behind it.
For Susan Smith and Diane Downs, I think that's complete narcissism.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, probably so.
Diane Downs, especially because I think she even was a surrogate while she was in prison
Right.
at one point.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Because she always said that she loved being pregnant. She said,
Right.
this is somebody that can love me, no matter what, and can't leave me, basically. Like
Right.
they're literally attached to her at that point. So,
well, you mentioned Yates and her husband leaving her at home with the kids against doctor's orders.
Yeah.
Brass here mentioned that Yates' husband thought her depression was only self-destructive, not directing it to others. And that, that could be the way you're thinking, because naturally I would never think it would be outside my normal thought that even with post-traumatic or postpartum that a mother could ever harm their children.
I say even in like the times that I've been severely depressed, like I've never been a danger to our daughter. Like
right.
I've never been a danger to myself either, so I can't really imagine that. But I mean, still, like to be in that kind of headspace, that's something I can't connect with.
Yeah.
Like, because again, like you said, it's so outside of me as a mother. Like my only instinct, usually 9 times out of 10, is to protect that child in there.
Yeah, that would
like,
be, I guess, it's psychosis too. Something.
Yeah, it would have to be just complete break from reality. Like.
Yeah, and I hate to say it goes against nature, and that's always been a pet peeve of mine too. People talk about, it's against nature, and animals don't even do this kind of stuff. Animals do that kind of stuff.
Animals are brutal.
I mean, if you're talking about nature and the humans just being another form of animal and nature being
look at prides
things.
of lions. When a new male comes in, he'll slaughter all the cubs that aren't his.
My goodness, the things we would be getting away with if we fell into that category and was on that same level.
Like there's nature for certain animals and there's nature for humans.
Yeah.
So people need to learn how to be able to separate those and like kind of compartmentalize them, because
these people, and they're usually vote a certain way too, but these people that say we should be more like animals in nature, that's some sort of weird Disney version of nature that they got in their heads, because nature is not.
No, nature's not pretty.
Place. They eat their young literally several. That's not uncommon for. I mean, one of the cutest little animals in the world, their defense mechanism is to throw their babies at the predator so they can get away. I mean, that's
terrible.
It's the truth.
I mean, can you imagine if somebody kicked in our door or something and I like pushed Catherine in front of me while I was trying to get out the door?
Yeah.
Like, that's
here,
terrible.
Take the child. We'll make another one just like her. That's nature for you. I mean so don't tell me that we should be more like animals.
I say the people who say we should be more like animals are typically the ones that are wanting to do really horrible things anyway, and they just want a justification for it.
I just think they're the people that I don't necessarily think they want to do terrible things. I just think they're misinformed. That they think Mother Earth is here to provide for us. No, we're here to tame Mother Earth, because Mother Earth would kill us all.
Yeah.
So we are here to take control of it and make it bend to our will, not the other way. Because Mother Earth will kill every one of us if she could. But anyways, I digress badly. I don't even know where we was talking about.
I say you're usually the one that's supposed to keep me on track.
Yeah, I don't know where we were.
But yeah, Rex, Diane Downs is going to be one of our in-depth episodes. And that one's another hard one. But there is a book by Ann Rule, which we did the kind of interview with her at the beginning about Ted Bundy, because she knew him. She worked with him. Like, they were actually pretty good friends. She wrote a book called The Stranger Beside Me, which was about Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
And then she actually did write one about Diane Downs. And I'm a fast reader. You know me. Like, I can finish a book, no matter how big it is, in at least a day and a half. That one took me like a week, 2 weeks to read, because it goes into so much detail about Diane Downs and what she did to these children and the medical issues that went along with these gunshot wounds, like from ER staff and everything. That one's called Small Sacrifices. So if you want to find that book, I would highly recommend that. Anything by Ann Rule is great, but if you want to learn about Diane Downs, go with her.
Yeah, as far as fast reader, you'll do 400 to 500 page book in a day, easy.
Yeah, and that one's not even a huge one, and it took me like 2 weeks to read.
Yeah, because you had to put it down and walk away.
Yeah, I mean, even when you were talking about David Parker Ray's tape, that's why I'm glad you wanted me to make you coffee, because I had to get up and move. I had to. I couldn't sit.
But yeah, we was talking about levels of evil, what makes things
What
is
makes
it
a
even fair
crime?
to make things something more evil than other? And the reality of it is, yeah, there is levels. Some things are worse. Some crimes are worse than others. I mean,
So
they
it's
just
human
are.
nature to put like varying degrees of severity
Yeah.
on things.
We can't, the religious side of me knows that all sin is equal.
Yeah, God sees it all the same way. A lie is the same as murder to God.
Exactly.
So,
but as us humans, obviously we don't see it that way.
I say to us, a lie is a lie. Like, at least you're not killing somebody, you know?
I mean, there's only one unforgivable sin. That's only one reason that you can't be forgiven, and that's blasphemy or rejection of the Holy Spirit or God Himself. You have to,
Hey, he actually said it right. Everybody gets that wrong. You're gonna take if you take the Lord's name in vain, you're going to hell, and they think that's because you're cussing. No, it's because you know the truth. You've been told the truth. Your heart saw the truth, and you turned away. That's the only.
That's it.
I mean, the perfect example for that in the Bible is the Pharisees who rejected Jesus. They saw the miracles He was performing. They know exactly who He was, and they still said that He was evil. He was of the devil, and
they said
that's blasphemy.
There's no way they wouldn't accept Him as the Messiah because they wasn't ready to see it.
Yeah,
they would lose. It would go against all their entire teachings.
They would lose their own power.
They were worried about their power more than anything.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I do want to expound for just a second, if you don't mind, only because since you guys brought up, that all sin is the same. One of the hardest things that I've had to try to explain to young Christians, as in very young, like recently converted Christians, is it specifically says in the Bible, if you've thought about it in your heart, you've already committed the sin. That's why we need Jesus. Because the second you've even looked at somebody and said, "Ooh, I'd like to tap that," God basically said you already did. So that's why we need Jesus. And that's why He looks at all sin the same. And that's why we needed the bridge, because God can't abide sin. So while we were covered in sin, He couldn't commune with us.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
you're exactly right.
That means that I'm like a prolific serial killer.
Yeah, because you think you're going to kill somebody. I could kill that soon.
Hey, Lucky Charm.
There's that one person in particular we kind of hinted at earlier, and we're not going to get into that, but there's one.
I mean, that would be double jeopardy on that, because it's just killing the same guy over and over and over.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, as far as sin being sin, and I look at this, that's why I have trouble putting levels on evil, is because I feel that way. Sin is sin, and that's the way God sees it. Being a human being, of course, we're born flawed. And I think there's a certain till an age of innocence. I hate to say born flawed, because there is an age of innocence.
So we're born into it, but until we actually know right from wrong, we're not accountable for it.
So I try to see it as like God would see it, but I'm going to fall short every time. So yes, to me, there is levels of evil in the world, and there's one source for that evil, and on the spiritual side of it,
you actually wanted to touch on some of this about maybe possession being a possibility for some of these people.
Like there's two that come to mind.
For this, like, I know we may lose some people here, but for this, we're not talking like, the Hollywood exorcisms and possession and everything like that. We're actually in kind of the more spiritual side of the conversation now. And we absolutely do believe that since, Satan has dominion over the earth and everything, like, his demons can absolutely latch onto somebody.
Well, we can take,
it doesn't relieve that person from anything that they're doing, obviously.
Well, this is where I'll even step back and take the Christian evil and God and Satan out of it. There is good and bad in the world, where you can choose where those originate from. I personally think, obviously, say it's God and his fallen angel, Satan. That's the basis of good and evil. But take that out of it. Just look at it as there's a spiritual warfare, a supernatural element that resides in this world, good and bad. Some people, all of us have a tendency, I believe, to fall into that bad side. We have to choose daily to be in the good.
To rise above like our baser instincts.
Yeah. And whatever moral code you follow, you can adjust to fit
So
whatever
you can
moral
apply
code.
this easily because good and evil are concepts in
Every religion,
like global religions.
Every religion has good and evil.
Yeah.
But they just call it from a different source. I just happen to believe that every religion has the same source. They just see it different.
Yeah.
But everybody's got good and evil in them. You've heard people say you've got two dogs or two wolves in you, and you
whichever one you
feed is the one that you are. That's the one that controls you. I think that it's demonic and angelic. That's the labels I'm going to put on it because of my beliefs. And I think that a very few, I think like, what's his name?
David Parker Ray, I would say.
David Parker Ray, perhaps. I don't know. Definitely on the evil side, but there's that one, I think it was in New Mexico.
Ramirez.
Richard Ramirez.
The Night Stalker.
The Night Stalker, yeah. I think that was
more California, but into the desert areas, so Southern California.
The one I'm thinking about maybe the that vampire guy too. He was bad crazy.
But you had mentioned Ramirez before.
Ramirez, I think, could be in. If there's a argument to be a willfully possessed person, I think Ramirez would fit that category. Now, he did have a lot of traumas growing up. He had some head injuries, epilepsy, things like that. His frontal lobe was damaged in an accident. So he had medical reasons too. But just from all the reports I've seen of him, all of his comments, his actions, his final words, even the antics he done inside the courtroom.
I say when they were talking about like things that he had done, he's sitting there smiling like he's proud of this.
He even was. I mean, he had the symbols etched into his hands.
Yeah.
You know,
he would hold up the pentagram that he scratched into his own hand.
He was openly suggesting that he was a host to something demonic and evil, and I believe he was.
I say I have no issues believing that whatsoever. So
another one I think could be Richard Chase. He killed 6 people in Sacramento, California, and he had a lot of mental issues as well. Schizophrenia was one of them.
He thought he was a vampire, basically.
Yes, he thought he was a vampire, but he would have.
Didn't he also have some kind of physical illness or something?
He had.
Was he a hemophiliac?
No, he had all his murders were also sexual in nature. Not necessarily raping and all. That's why I feel like a lot of these are
a necrophiliac.
Sexual and there's reasons.
Yeah.
He would drink blood because he thought it would give. He had ED, severe cases of erectile dysfunction. It just didn't work. He thought that drinking this blood would make his parts work. Okay.
It would be extra blood flow
and that's
to
why
that
the
area.
necrophilia come in because he practiced after he killed him to see if it was working. And like this dude, again, something in him was so broken. And I can't see how a created being could be that broken without something
taking advantage of that.
Taking advantage of it and making them that broken. Again, I'm getting into a lot of spiritual in my beliefs in this part, and I don't mean to turn anybody off. You can put it, like I said, every religion, every belief has some sort of moral code, good and evil. You can name it what you want to. This is how I call it because it's how I believe, it's how I was brought up to. That's how I walked away from it and came back to it as well. But anyways, that's a whole different story. But there's a couple, Richard Chase and Richard Ramirez, two Richards, I guess.
They're always dicks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you beat me to it. I was going to have a joke there. But yeah, I think there is a spiritual element as well to get to this evil part. Parker Ray may have very well done it. But I think once people, again, nature versus nurture, once people get to that level, I think there has to be something else that's guiding them and pushing them through some of these things they do. Because I can't accept someone's brain being broken that far.
That severely.
To get them to this. Something has to be influencing something else. And that's just where I feel like it, you know.
I can see that for a lot of them, but I mean, we share the same views anyway, especially spiritually. But
I'm sorry, I fell out on the chat here.
I say we're reading Rex's now.
Yeah, not even religion is required, just sanity and humanity. Yeah. I kind of agree with that. As far as a good place to look for shorter stuff, you don't want to read a whole book about these. I mean, there's
a place called crimelibrary.org, I think, which is kind of where I got when the internet first came out when I was a kid and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I discovered that place. I don't even know if that site's still up and running, but it was crimelibrary.org. And they just have kind of the basic rundown of different cases and stuff like that. I usually hate Wikipedia, but sometimes they're actually pretty good for this. Like if you just need the quick bullet points.
If you want something to actually books to read and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean books to read, I got you covered on that. But
a lot of these
want to read like a full novel length story.
A lot of these books, like the one we mentioned here, you can look them up on chapter by chapter. It's definitely not like a novel where they leave you cliffhangers. You can just read chapter by chapter, go back and forth on what you want to find out, and it's in there pretty well, broken up for you. You don't feel like you have to sit down and read the entire book in one sitting. It's made that you can put it down one book.
Yeah.
There's of course a lot of stuff on YouTube. If there's something interesting, you can look it up.
I mean, true crime is an area that's just absolutely exploding the last couple of years.
It's
so there's
a lot. So
I mean, 90% of you've seen my TikTok. I mean, I follow a lot of true crime content creators over there, and actually one of the stories that I wrote about that mass grave that they found in Mississippi, I heard about on TikTok first because it just wasn't in the news.
Yeah.
Which was amazing to me, but
there's a plethora of places that you can get this kind of information in short form.
Yeah.
6-minute videos or 2-hour videos or 2-hour podcasts like we're doing, or 2 hours 15 minutes now.
Yeah, I mean, even YouTube is pretty good because
short form.
Yeah, you can get both of them if you want longer content videos. They've got interview clips from popular serial killers and everything, and I'm not going to recommend it, but yes, YouTube even has David Parker Ray's orientation tape that you can listen to if you want to. I just do not recommend it because it's horrible.
Maybe that's something we should do is like killer cliff notes, the short little 15-minute deals.
Yeah.
But that's one reason we're doing this on Saturdays now is because we try to condense this stuff into an hour on Wednesday nights, and we just couldn't do it. I mean, there was so much more we wanted to talk about. David Parker Ray, if you want to give that a pass, I don't blame you.
Yeah, I would recommend giving that one a pass. But for the other weirdos, I've sat through it one time in my entire life, and that's the only time I will ever sit through it. I'm not going to ever listen to that again.
You probably don't want to go into much detail on Richard Chase either.
Yeah, I mean,
on the way he was cannibalizing.
I say if there are some things that are you're more sensitive to, we'll definitely, I even said, Diane Downs, Andrea Yates, the familial sides. There's even a guy killed his whole family. He had an unsolved mysteries. That's what it was. He had a whole episode because he had killed his entire family, including his elderly mother, zipped him up into sleeping bags, set his thermostat to super, super low, and left the house. And he was not found for decades. He created an entire new family.
I mean, there's like you said, there's so many stories, so many people.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of scary that there are so many stories about this kind of stuff. You can get as deep as you want to, which we kind of enjoy getting into it. More the psychological and reason whys. I don't necessarily need to. I do read all the details of what they did and how they done it, but it's not necessary to follow along. If you want to just dip your toes in it and be able to sleep at night, you can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I know your mama even had told us that some of the episodes she hadn't been able to listen to because they're just the details are their stomach churning.
Yeah,
I mean, it really is.
Yeah, my mother can't listen to all of these. Because like I said, she just can't stomach of what we get into.
I say, and I'm not even into technicalities, I guess you would call it, of like how the murders were committed. It's not the sensationalism. It's not the blood and gore. I mean, for those of you that have already listened to the other 3 episodes before this, we take time out of the show specifically to remember the victims because they're the most important people that we talk about.
Yeah. This is, again, a unique show. It's the first one for our 2-hour night. And so we won't have it in memoriam.
Yeah, there's no specific victims because we didn't go in depth into a specific case.
Yes, but we normally end the show with that every time because those are the ones that need to be recognized and remembered. All these cases have victims, and that's the ones that should be remembered. I hope every one of these people's names are eventually forgotten, or at least not romanticized anymore.
Yeah.
And these victims need to be the ones who are remembered.
Well, and that's why when we get into the episode eventually about the mass shootings and everything, we will not be naming the shooters on the show.
Well, we may bring up their case enough that you'll recognize who they are, obviously.
Yeah, you will, but I'm not going to name them because infamy is one of the things that they all have in common, the desire for infamy.
Especially if they're still living. We don't want to give them any kind of publicity, I guess.
Yeah, I absolutely refuse to do that on that episode. So, but yeah, for the details of the case, you'll probably know which incident we're talking about. But
like I said, we said we was going to go for 2 hours tonight. We're at 2 hours and 20 minutes now. Is there anything else you want to add, or?
I say, does anybody have any questions out there? Like anything else y'all want to talk about? Or?
And you get if there's something that suggestions for us.
Yeah, any future show that you would like us to do. So
yeah, if you want to say, hey, Bumpstock Ken needs to stop talking so much, you can put that on there too. I mean, I take criticism pretty well. So, but I think that, we can continue to go back and forth.
I was about to say, they could just listen to us talk all night if they want.
But I don't want to get repetitive either.
Yeah.
I think we covered what we wanted to cover. It's pretty well. There's some stuff I still could go into, especially on the spiritual side of it, but I don't. That'll be a whole other show.
Yeah.
But we covered what we wanted to cover about the 22 categories. What the clinical definition of evil is.
Or at least to this doctor. To Dr. Anyway.
Stone, yeah. And kind of where we touch on evil as well.
But we'll kind of plug his book since, we are actually using his book as The Anatomy of Evil, and his name is Michael H. Stone. So, like I said, a little more clinical than most of the books that I have in there in the library. So
it's very in-depth. It has a ton of reference points and stuff that you can go to and find.
Oh yeah, I think 90% of the back of the book is just the like bibliography type stuff, his notes and.
But yeah, we relied heavily on him tonight in his book, and.
But it's absolutely fascinating what he talks about. So anybody that's kind of like me, that's a nut for stuff like this, especially for the more psychological aspect of it, because again, it's not the sensationalism, it's not the blood, it's not the killings themselves. For me, it's what drives a person to do something like this to other people.
Yeah.
Like I've always needed that question answered to my satisfaction.
Yep.
And I know I'll never get that question answered, but
Yeah. And I do it just to keep her happy. So I'm not on her list any more than I already am probably. So,
I haven't made a grocery list in a while.
But I want to, again, we're going to start wrapping it up. We don't have our normal in memoriam this time. Future episodes, of course, we'll get back into that when it's correct to do so. I think next show will be in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it should be 2 weeks from today. And what now, Rick?
Yeah, 2 weeks from today.
Okay, yeah. And if Zelda's available, she'll come in and we'll do the nature nurture episode.
Yeah, that was brought up a couple of times in the chat, was nature versus nurture. And I think
that's a big conversation, kind of like this, that we could have. So.
It'll be kind of a play right off of what we're doing tonight as well.
More just the discussion.
It'll fall right in line with what we talked about.
I think Zelda would feel more comfortable with that too than the more formatted version that we did before.
And if there's anybody, that else that would like to join us more on an actual voice, like on the guest level, just hit us up at some point. Maybe we can make that work as well. But at the end of that,
just so you guys know, using this new setup, Me and right now you guys count as basically the three of us count as 2, so you can actually have up to 8 more people.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
So
very cool.
I was thinking, just 1 or 2 more, and then in the future we'll work them in on a different show. But yeah, that's actually could be a good.
I say I know. Well, I won't use his real name here because I don't know if he wants me to. But Quintus.
Yeah.
He's got that one specific case that like there is public information available for, and we would have him on for that one.
And there's one in the future that we want. 2 other hosts, Rick.
I want G and Orty on that one, but I'm not telling them what the case is going to be.
That's going to be
on.
one. So it's good to know that we can have multiple guests with us. We'll keep that in mind. But that was the voice of Rick, our producer, and I'll let him go ahead and introduce himself real quick as we start wrapping things up. So, Rick, if you want to go ahead.
Actually, why don't you guys go ahead and give out all your info real quick? Because right before we play your outro, I've got some stuff I got to go over housekeeping.
Oh, yeah. For sure. It's just from now on, I think that would make more sense. We'll do ours, and that way you can have the floor because it's easier to tell people what you don't do than what you do. So if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, I'm. Most of y'all already know I'm Bumpstock Barbie on X. You can write for Twitchy too. I've got my author page linked in my Twitter bio, my X bio. We also co-run the Talk Murder to Me Twitter page, which is Talk Murder to Me, but the number 2 in there instead. I think those are really the only ones I've got. I mean, I've got a Facebook, but that's for family. So
yeah, you can find me on X as Bumpstock Ken, and other than that, I drive a truck, I drink coffee, and I know things. Yeah. So that's and smoke a cigar every so often. So if you want to talk about murders or Bigfoot, I'm your man. So.
Hey, I was smoking a cigar this entire broadcast, so that's why I was chill about letting you guys stay over.
Yeah. What's your favorite cigar?
I actually don't really have a favorite yet. My dad got me hooked on some fairly cheap ones. I can get decent smokes for like $1 a piece, so that's usually what I stick with.
I'll send you some messages about some of my favorite cheap ones, and I like the Maduros for during the day, and I like something a little darker and spicier at night. So
yeah, now I do like Maduros. I have had those.
So, but I'll shoot you a message about some good cheap ones that I like.
Oh, that's Greek to me. So.
Yeah, Zelda was yelling and whining on Facebook. What is it with men and cigars? I'm like, they taste.
Yeah. Go ahead and tell the world about yourself, and I think we'll pretty much close out after that. So,
all right, well, folks, this has been the inaugural episode of Talk Murder to be now on its every other Saturday night run, and I've actually, and this is I'll talk to you guys about something I've noticed when we get off the air. But as far as everything going on around here, I'll be back tomorrow night doing the America Off the Rails show. I am off Monday. Monday is my 1 month day off that I take, so I will not be on the air Monday. There will be a Spirited Books with Aggie and Jeff, so make sure you guys hang out for that in the evening. And then I'll be back Tuesday doing the Rick Robinson show this week. This next week, Tuesday through Friday. I will be working the 4th of July day shift. We will not have programming unless anybody else wants to fill in production-wise on the evening of the 4th, because hopefully everybody's going to be out blowing things up anyway. Then I'll be back Friday night doing He Said, She Said with Aggie, and then John and I are going to do a special going mental on Friday night because the 4th is Thursday, and we didn't want, nobody's going to listen to us anyway. And then we may, if I can talk him into it, do a shorter version of Juxtaposition Friday night when we get done with going mental, because that's supposed to be Saturday, but I'm going to be out blowing stuff up with my kids Saturday because we always do our big 4th of July the weekend after. Anyway, other than that, you can find me at RowdyRick73 on most social media platforms. You can also find me as a contributor on Twitchy, which Laura is also a contributor at Twitchy as well, and she failed to mention that a moment ago. Just throwing that out there. And I also contribute to LoftusParty.com, MisfitsPolitics.com, and I'm the executive producer of the Loftus Party podcast, which usually drops on Tuesdays. I think that's everything, and if not, that's already too damn much.
Yeah.
Taking that one Monday off, Daniel says you're slacking.
Yeah, my goodness. What are you doing? You take a whole day off and you sleep too? That's crazy.
Yeah, occasionally. But
Yeah, it sounds like we could do a whole show on cigars by looking at the chat right there too. So we might have to do a mini episode on cigars too. So.
Yeah, honestly, what we should probably do is have you on Toxic one.
Oh
Wednesday,
yeah.
and
Oh my God! Please make him the babe of the month.
Oh, absolutely.
We made Loftus the babe of the month once. I even sent him a dress.
Well, thank you so much, Rick, and thank all you listeners. We hope you enjoyed it.
Enjoy the rest of your Saturday night, ladies and gentlemen. This concludes KLRN Radio's broadcast day. We'll be back tomorrow.
Every fight, she's gonna rock your shit by the end of the night. And the only advantage that a killer has is they think they have the right. I listen to a lot of true crime. I listen to it at night. I like the girl talk. It makes me feel alright. I like scary stories in the morning.